Chapter 487. Qing Huiqiming looked at the one-armed man and explained, "We've chosen a Star General through the Star General selection ceremony. This man from the blue sky will be the master of the game, representing the Qing Hui tribe in the game of life and death. The chief told me to bring him here to choose warriors." When the one-armed man heard this, he only snorted, "At least it's a little useful." He stepped aside. Jiang Wang and Qing Huiqiming walked in before he closed the metal door again. "The doors here are closed as much as possible to prevent the star beasts from running out," Qing Huiqiming explained to Jiang Wang. "What happens if they run out?" Jiang Wang asked. "If the star beasts are exposed to the blue sky and come into contact with the light of heavenly pivot, it'll be a disaster." Qing Huiqiming didn't describe the disaster in detail, but his expression of lingering fear was enough to imagine the extent of the disaster. This place was like a giant underground cavern. At first glance, it looked like countless torches were raised high in the night. Now that they were inside, they could see that there were people under the flames. To be more precise, there was a flame floating above every warrior's head, whether they were sitting or standing. This is the manifestation of their totemic origins. They're using it to recuperate. Qing Huiqiming explained, then added, "Our warriors will only use their totemic origins when they're in dire straits. The battle just now must have been intense." Jiang Wang could sense the difficulty of the battle even without Qing Huiqiming's explanation. Almost every one of the warriors sitting or lying down was injured. Some of them were lying on the ground, snoring loudly. They were probably following some sort of rotation system. There were about 1,000 Qing Hui tribe warriors in the entire cavern. They were all extraordinary fighters, more than Jiang Wang had imagined. This raised his evaluation of the Void Continent's strength once more. When Qing Huiqiming led Jiang Wang through the crowd, no one paid them any attention. This shaman of the Qing Hui tribe didn't seem to be very popular. The warriors guarding the fort didn't respect him enough either. Qing Huiqiming didn't seem to care, or perhaps he wasn't in the mood to care. Jiang Wang noticed that he was trembling. It was a tremor of fear. He must have experienced something. Otherwise, with his status and strength, he should not be so fearful of the catacombs. Qing Huigaoqi had purposely asked Qing Huiqiming to lead Jiang Wang to the Wuji catacombs. It was probably because he wanted to solve his problem. In an environment like the Void Continent, there was nothing to worry about. A shaman priest who could not enter the catacombs was undoubtedly difficult to convince. The one-armed warrior did not speak along the way. He only brought them to a man with a full beard. "The Patriarch sent me here to pick people to participate in the life and death game," he said concisely. "Pick people? What's there to be picky about?" The bearded man was furious and impolite. "Does he know how tight the manpower here is? It's a waste of time to transfer people to the life and death chest. If we don't guard the catacombs, do we want the Qing Hui division to perish?" The one-armed warrior turned to look at Qiming, allowing him to explain himself. "I hosted the Star General selection ceremony and welcomed the blue sky visitor," Qing Huiqiming said. Only then did the bearded man size up Jiang Wang. His expression softened slightly. "Even so, you shouldn't have come to the Wuji catacombs. Just pick some people from the clan. If you can get a dozen or so places in the life and death game, the next 100 years will be much easier." Qing Huiqiming didn't seem to have much confidence in front of this person. He said hesitantly, "This time, we want to guarantee 3 out of 5. "The Patriarch said it himself?" the bearded man asked. "The Patriarch personally fought with him." The bearded man immediately fell silent. He turned around and silently looked behind him. In the spacious catacombs, the ground rose and fell. Walking here, Jiang Wang finally saw a giant pit not far behind the bearded man. Inside the giant pit, it was as dark as ink. It was so thick that it could not be dispersed. Jiang Wang walked forward a few steps. Even with his best eyesight, he could not see the end of the darkness. "Was this Yu Tian?" Other than darkness, there seemed to be nothing. This giant pit was where the real catacombs was. As the leader of the warriors of the entire Wuji catacombs, the bearded man stood at the very front. Jiang Wang still wanted to get closer for a look, but the bearded man reached out and stopped him. Don't get any closer. You're very important now. Nothing can happen to you. Jiang Wang listened and didn't move, but he asked, will it be dangerous to just stand there? No one can say for sure when the star beasts will swarm up. The bearded man paused and said, since the patriarch recognizes your strength, then it's worth our warriors risking their lives for. You go and pick someone. Anyone is fine. You won't get anything out of choosing like this, Jiang Wang said. I need to see their battle. The bearded man's expression was solemn. This isn't a performance, and it's definitely not a game. Once the battle starts, we won't have anyone to protect you. I don't need anyone to protect me. I'm also a warrior, Jiang Wang said. If we want to fight side by side in the life and death game, we might as well start here. That one-armed warrior laughed hoarsely. You're a bit like a warrior, but you're a bit skinny. These words had a hidden meaning. Qing Huiqiming said, no, you can't take this risk. It's not easy to get a good ranking in the life and death game. Our Qinghua tribe can't take this risk. The one-armed warrior looked at him rudely. Is it him who can't take the risk, or is it you who can't take the risk? You! Qing Huiqiming's face turned red as he looked at him in rage. This rage was mixed with fear and shame. The one-armed warrior didn't have any intention of retreating. All right, Master Shaman. Jiang Wang reached out and patted Qing Huiqiming's shoulder. He didn't want to see him in a bad spot. I've already decided. At the very least, we need to experience a battle here before we can choose someone to go to the life and death game with me. Go back and tell your patriarch for me. That's right. The one-armed warrior laughed coldly. Go back and hide in the patriarch's embrace. I'm not leaving, Qing Huiqiming suddenly shouted. He gritted his teeth and said, Qing Huiyuanchen, don't think that I don't dare. Isn't it just Yu Tian? He couldn't deny the fear he felt when facing Yu Tian, but he also couldn't take such a direct humiliation. As the shaman, it was fine if he was ignored. How could he take being pointed at and spat at? That's enough. The full-bearded man spoke at this time. Qing Huiqiming, go back. The shaman should stay in the fire temple and not the underground cavern. Uncle Heng, I'm not a coward, Qing Huiqiming said with red eyes. Do you think that I'm a coward too? The full-bearded man didn't speak. I won't leave, Qing Huiqiming said word by word. The full-bearded man didn't look like a very patient person. He only said, then do as you wish. The one-armed warrior called Qing Huiyuanchen was very obedient. The full-bearded man told him to stop, so he didn't provoke Qing Huiqiming anymore. He only said to Jiang Wang, this brother, I don't know when the next wave of star beasts will come. Where will you wait? We have a set battle order, and we need to know where we are. Jiang Wang looked at Qing Huiqiming and said, I'll go with him. After all, the two were relatively familiar with each other, and the fire totem on his back was given by Qing Huiqiming. He was closer to Qing Huiqiming in his heart. It was just that Qing Huiqiming's position in the underground cavern was hard to understand. Jiang Wang actually wanted to stay at the edge of the underground cavern so that he could come into contact with the star beasts immediately. But he took Qing Huiqiming into consideration, so he walked back. In the area that Qing Huiyuanchen had set, he found a place to sit down and placed his sword on his knees. Qing Huiqiming sat silently by his side. Tell me. Jiang Wang purposely found a topic to talk about. Why don't you guys close the underground cavern? Cast a large piece of metal and cover the cavern. Qing Huiqiming still hadn't calmed down, but he still explained, anything that blocks the entrance will disappear, including people. So don't fall in. If you fall, it'll be gone. I see. Jiang Wang nodded. I'll pay attention. Qing Huiqiming seemed to have opened his mouth. He looked in the direction of the cavern. Do you know? Actually, I've wanted to come here since I was young. Chapter 488. Jiang Wang was waiting for him to continue. But Qing Huiqiming asked, Do you also think I'm a coward? His expression looked very serious. Jiang Wang thought for a moment, then said with the same serious attitude, I haven't experienced what you've experienced, so I can't judge you so easily. Qing Huiqiming was silent for a while, then asked with red eyes, Is there a very bright world above the blue sky? He said, I've never heard anyone say such things. People always follow what others say and they always easily deny others. Some people say he's a coward. Others know he's a coward. Some say he became the shaman priest only because he was lucky. Others will know that he was just lucky. On the void continent, no one will ask a single question. Do you know? He looked at Jiang Wang. Jiang Wang shook his head. I'm afraid I'll have to disappoint you, he said. Our world isn't a very bright one. It's normal for people to follow what others say. Rumors can easily change or destroy a person. Most of the time, people are too lazy to think. They stick to the rules and follow blindly. There are also times when people doubt everything and don't trust anyone. Greed is hard to quench, schemes run amok, benefits are paramount, and relationships are indifferent. They only think about themselves and don't care about others. What I've said is just a drop in the ocean, an insignificant filth among filth. The darkness of the world is something I can't describe. But I don't want to tell you how hopeless the world I live in is. Because there's light, a lot of light. In places where the sun can't reach, the moon can't reach, it burns in that world. Some commit heinous crimes, while others save the dying and heal the wounded. Some betray their promises. Some keep their promises. For a promise, they don't hesitate to die. Jiang Wang was very calm. The world is like that. If you see light, then it's light. If you close your eyes, then it's darkness. You asked me what my world is like. This is the world I live in, above your blue sky. Qing Huiqiming fell silent. The warriors in the Wuji catacombs were all recuperating at the moment. No one looked over here, probably because they had exhausted all their energy in the previous battle. The two of them sat in a remote corner. It looked like they did not belong to the catacombs. Jiang Wang was a passerby, but so was Qing Huiqiming. Do you want to hear my story? Qing Huiqiming asked. I have nothing to do anyway, Jiang Wang said. He acted very casually, which made celebratory Flame Qiming a little more relaxed. My father is a coward, and I am the son of a coward. Qing Huiqiming used this as an opening to begin his story. He was originally very talented, and the clan had high hopes for him. His cultivation was also very smooth, and his progress was very fast. However, when they entered the catacombs for the first time to guard, they encountered the largest beast tide at that time. Countless tribal warriors were killed or injured. Out of the same batch of people who entered the catacombs, he was the only one who survived. That was unfortunate, because he was scared. He was completely terrified. So much so that, to avoid the responsibility of guarding the catacombs, he destroyed his own totem. He would rather be pointed at and scolded, would rather everyone look down on him, than take a step into the catacombs for the rest of his life. After that, he died. He died in a winter. My grandfather could not bear the humiliation he brought, and killed him with his own hands. Speaking of his father's death, Qing Huiqiming's tone was cold. He looked in the direction of the catacombs, his face expressionless. Since I was young, my grandfather told me that I wanted to become a true warrior, that I wanted to be brave, that I wanted to wash away our family's humiliation. That was my goal, and I cultivated diligently, dreaming of being able to participate in the catacombs battles. As for my grandfather, he set an example, and would enter the catacombs every year. So he died in the catacombs. After that, I was adopted by my foster father. I said that my goal was to face Ution, that I wanted to become a warrior who could kill star beasts. He approved of my ambition, and was very supportive of me. However, every time I applied to enter the catacombs with him, he would say that I was still young, and that I needed to wait a few more years. Every time, he would make me stay in the fire temple. After that, he also died. The day he died, I stood outside the catacombs fortress. When the door opened, people gave me a rag, saying that it was a fragment of his clothes. That was the only thing he had left, and he fell into Ution. Speaking of this, Qing Huiqiming took a deep breath. I don't know why either. That day, when I looked at the catacombs fortress, I suddenly felt very afraid. I've always wanted to enter the catacombs. I've thought about it for many years, and I've also worked hard for it for many years. However, from that day onwards I never thought about it again. I didn't dare to think about it. Jiang Wang said, "You still came today." I didn't want to, but I had to. My clansman's patience with me has almost reached its limit. Do you know? When I presided over the Star General selection ceremony, some clansmen said that if the ceremony did not succeed, they would use me as a sacrifice to the heavens. Qing Huiqiming pursed his lips. I knew that they were serious. Jiang Wang thought of the Forest Ocean sacred clans Xiang Shou. Those who betrayed tradition, those who deviated from mainstream values, would always be abandoned by their clansmen. This kind of thing could not even be judged by right or wrong. If Qing Huiqiming had also refused to bring the one from the blue sky to the catacombs to choose people, the consequences he would face could be imagined. The reason he was angry with the one-armed Qing Huiyuanqing was actually not completely because he was angry. It was because he did not dare to leave Jiang Wang behind and return to his clan. Before you appeared, I was already planning to escape Qing Hui tribe. However, Qing Huiqiming shook his head bitterly. Who would want someone who does not dare to enter the catacombs? Are you very curious why I'm telling you all this? Qing Huiqiming asked and answered his own question. Because I am still very afraid. I hate why I am so afraid, but I have no choice. I am indeed afraid. I have to say something. However, other than when I pray, no one is willing to listen to me. Qing Huiqiming's tone was bleak, carrying a kind of loneliness. Jiang Wang only patted his shoulder, not saying anything. Was Qing Huiqiming not wrong? Everyone on the floating continent was facing the threat of Ution. All the warriors were risking their lives for the survival of their clansmen, but Qing Huiqiming was hiding in a safe place, dragging out an ignoble existence. Was Qing Huiqiming wrong? He could not overcome his fear. Was this his fault? Not everyone could become a hero. Then did those who were not brave not have the right to live? In the harsh reality, perhaps it was. However, it should not be. Jiang Wang believed that his experience and wisdom were not enough to judge whether Qing Huiqiming was right or wrong. Perhaps this question did not even have an answer. Therefore, he said nothing. The silence continued for a while. Whoosh 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 whoosh, the sound of wind could be heard in the Wuji catacombs. The wind seemed to come from an unknown place, whistling as it approached. Star Beast! The Star Beast is here! Someone shouted. Chapter 489. Almost as soon as he heard the commotion, Jiang Wang had already stood up with his sword. Wait here for a moment. I'll go take a look. Qing Huiqiming did not respond. At this moment, his entire body was tense. The appearance of the Star Beast seemed to have opened an invisible door in his heart, releasing all of his fear. Jiang Wang could not stay to comfort him. Thus, he only glanced at him, and then leaped toward the hole that connected to Ution. Wuji Catacombs was huge. Jiang Wang did not hesitate. However, when he arrived, there were already many Qing Hui tribe warriors waiting in formation in front of the hole. The bearded man was giving orders and adjusting the formation. The one-armed Qing Huiyuanqing was holding a saber. He stood at the front of the team with a determined expression. Was Qing Hua Yuanqing mean to Qing Hua Qiming? It could be said that he was mean. However, as a Qing Hua tribe warrior, he guarded Wuji catacombs and even lost an arm for this. He had already lost an arm, but he was still fighting in the catacombs. Even now, when the star beast attacked, he still stood at the front without hesitation. Did someone like him have the right to look down on cowards like Qing Hua Qiming? It seemed that he did. The world was not black and white. There were many things that could not be determined clearly. It was strange to say that although he heard the whistling of the wind, the Yu-Tian that he saw was calm, as if nothing had happened. "Where is the star beast?" Jiang Wang asked. No one responded to him. All the warriors in front of the hole were on full alert, waiting for a battle. "It will appear soon." Qing Hua Yuanqing glanced at him quickly and said, "Stand behind me." Jiang Wang walked over as told. He did not try to be brave. The warriors in Wuji catacombs were well trained. At this moment there was a team guarding the hole. Their sabers were unsheathed and arrows were nocked. There were two groups of people at the back, acting as backup. The warriors further away were still recuperating. They did not even look over. To be able to achieve this level of order, they could be called a regular army. They were elites. "They're here," Qing Hua Yuanqing said. Jiang Wang then saw that in the thick inky color, there were specks of stars, reflecting each other's brilliance. At first glance, they looked like stars in the night sky. She was breathtakingly beautiful. This made one understand why the people of the floating continent referred to the catacombs as secluded heaven and secluded void instead of secluded abyss. "This time, it's burned through," Qing Hua Yuanqing muttered. Jiang Wang already knew that in the Qing Hua division, burned meant rich. This meant that the strength of this star beast tide wasn't low. If the first star beast tide was already like this, the following star beast tide would be even more severe. Team 2, Team 3, get ready for battle. Go forward. The bearded man had already shouted, Team 4, Team 5, finish your rest and enter standby. Star beasts are pitch-black beasts, but there are stars on their bodies. The more stars he had, the stronger he was. This group of star beasts was very difficult to deal with. When you retreat, pay attention to your position. Don't affect the other warriors. Qing Hua Yuanqing hurriedly explained to Jiang Wang. At the same time, he took a step forward and slashed down with his saber. This hole in the Wuji catacombs had a radius of about 600 feet. Because the hole's entrance wasn't regular, this number wasn't very accurate. However, it was undoubtedly very big. It was impossible to see clearly in the darkness. When the starlight leaped out of the hole, the star beast's specific appearance was exposed to Jiang Wang's eyes. Star beasts was just a general term. These star beasts all had different appearances. The one that Qing Hua Yuanqing attacked had the appearance of a crow. Of course, no matter what kind of bird it was, as long as its size matched and it was black, it would be difficult for it not to resemble a crow. Even the eyes of this crow-shaped star beast were pitch black. After leaving the secluded heaven, its specific outline was only revealed under the illumination of the fire. What was different from a crow was that there were 3 spots of light on its left and right wings, flickering like starlight. Qing Hua Yuanqing's saber slashed down with unparalleled accuracy. When it was about to come into contact with the crow-shaped star beast, a line of fire burst out from the blade. Just like that, the crow-shaped star beast silently melted away. Jiang Wang didn't make a move immediately. Instead, he chose to observe first. He was observing the star beast's weakness as well as the Qinghua tribe's warriors. He wanted to choose the most suitable person who could help him in the life and death chess that was about to open. Most of the battles surrounding the hole entered his field of vision. Based on what he saw so far, Qing Hua Yuanqing's combat strength was one of the stronger ones among the first wave of warriors to engage the star beast. He was about as strong as Bao Zhongqing's subordinate, Yan Er, the sea-toppling hand. He was a force that could dominate the soaring dragon realm in a county. There were many ways to use totemic power. Jiang Wang saw someone draw a bow and release a stream of fire from the arrow. He also saw someone carving patterns out of thin air, forming all sorts of effects similar to Dao technique. Jiang Wang initially believed that the void continent's totemic power was similar to Dao essence. It was the foundation of transcendence. Of course, in terms of origin, it was already fundamentally different from Dao essence. Looking at the star beasts again, they weren't particularly scary in terms of defense, speed, or attack. They weren't much stronger than the wild beasts on Yuhing Peak. The only thing to worry about was their numbers. Jiang Wang's judgment was quickly overturned. This was because the relatively easy attacks only lasted for 2 rounds. In the 3rd round, the star beasts that surged up from Yutian were suddenly a level stronger. Their bodies didn't change much, but the number of stars on their bodies had almost doubled compared to the first wave of star beasts. Qinghua Yuan Chen's blade was actually dodged by a monkey-shaped star beast. If he hadn't reacted in time, he would have been scratched hard. The bearded man's decision to send more people ahead of time was proven correct. Faced with the star beasts that had skyrocketed in strength, the Qinghua tribe's warriors still held their positions. Many people were injured, but no one died in battle. The wounds inflicted by the star beasts weren't anything special. They didn't seem any different from those inflicted by ordinary wild beasts. It was unknown whether these warriors had already gotten used to the star beasts' existence, or if the wounds they inflicted weren't that big of a problem. Jiang Wang thought it was the former. The star beasts disappeared upon death, leaving no spoils behind. This was similar to the wild beasts of the modern realm. In other words, there didn't seem to be any benefits to fighting the star beasts other than tempering the strength of an army. This was the biggest problem. Every war had its share of losses. If one couldn't use battle to support battle, then war was a process of suicide. Jiang Wang had personally witnessed how Tri-Mountain City had been destroyed by the wild beast's nest. Thus, he could understand why the situation on the Void Continent was so tense, and why the Qinghua tribe was so short on funds. The Void Continent had such a long history, and it must have given birth to countless wise men. They must have researched Yotian's existence and the star beast's existence countless times. They must have thought of countless solutions, but no matter what the process was, the final result was that there weren't any good solutions. A fortress guarded a catacomb, and the warriors used their flesh and blood to resist the star beasts. It was this ancient response that had continued to this day. Jiang Wang didn't think about how to solve this problem once and for all. He didn't think that he was far more intelligent than the people of the Void Continent. His understanding of Yutian was also very shallow. However, the preliminary observation was already over. At the very least, he didn't have to hide behind Qinghua Yuan Chen anymore. Stand back for a bit. Jiang Wang pulled Qinghua Yuan Chen back, who was beginning to show signs of fatigue. Then, he unsheathed Somnia Cry and beheaded the fox-shaped star beast whose head was covered in starlight. Chapter 490. Qinghua Yuancheng was secretly shocked. Everyone in the Wuji catacombs knew of his bravery and strength. This could be seen from the way he treated Qinghua Qiming without holding back. After all, Qinghua Qiming was a shaman priest. He naturally had a noble status. Even if others looked down on Qinghua Qiming, they would rarely mock him to his face. However, he was fully focused on the battle just now. When Jiang Wang reached out to pull him, he actually instinctively dodged and almost counterattacked. However, Jiang Wang's hand still caught him accurately and neutralized the momentum of his counterattack. Jiang Wang's hand naturally brought him behind him like a moving cloud and flowing water. This showed that the difference in strength between the two was huge. And Jiang Wang's extremely accurate sword strike also made Qinghua Yuancheng's eyes light up. It didn't consume too much power. It was almost at the limit of the star beast's endurance. This showed that Jiang Wang had sufficient understanding of star beasts and his own sword. This made Qinghua Yuanqing more confident about the outcome of the life and death chess game. Jiang Wang didn't care about Qinghua Yuanqing's feelings. After the sword strike, he directly formed a Dao seal. He completed the Dao seal at the fastest speed. The strongest Dao technique he had mastered so far, the 8-tone flame sparrow. It directly blasted out and covered the entire entrance of the Yu Heaven cave. The flame sparrows were noisy, and the 8 notes were mighty. The densely packed flame sparrows rushed past. The extreme noise turned into extreme silence. This wave of star beasts was directly cleared out by the 8-tone flame sparrow. Under Jiang Wang's intentional control, many flame sparrows also plunged into the Yu Heaven. However, not even a ripple appeared. It was as if, when they rushed into the Yu Heaven, they had already become a part of the Yu Heaven. As expected, everything that fell into the Yu Heaven would be disintegrated? Or should it be assimilated? Jiang Wang was still immersed in his own observation. He didn't know that the Qinghua Division's warriors were looking at him with eyes full of amazement. Who is he? Finally, someone started to care. Look at his totem dharma spells. Is he the new shaman priest of our Qinghua Division? I saw him come in with that person. That's great. It's finally a new shaman priest? Wake up. Hold the line. The bearded man interrupted the soldier's messy guesses and explained, "This is the man from the clear sky. He is here to represent the Qinghua tribe in the game of life and death." Oh, it's Go Master. I thought it was a new shaman. Jiang Wang glanced back at Qinghua Qiming, who was sitting in the corner. The warriors' discussion hadn't stopped. He should be able to hear it. But right now, Qinghua Qiming's head was lowered and his expression couldn't be seen. At this moment, Jiang Wang couldn't say anything. He could only sigh in his heart. The bearded man took the opportunity to mobilize. Whoever performs well can participate in the life and death chess together with this star general, and strive for a ranking that has not been seen in hundreds of years for our Qinghua tribe. The soldiers were already excited. They knew very well what the ranking in the life and death game represented. The rise of the Great Fire Division might be due to this. There was nothing more exciting than the rise of a tribe for these warriors who were fighting at the front lines. Watch me. Today I will definitely burn. Jiang Wang didn't respond to the warriors' enthusiasm. He just quickly completed his hand seals. When the next wave of star beasts surged forward, he used the 8-note flame sparrow again. The star beasts were cleared once again. The dim sky below the cave was instantly pitch black. After a long while, some star beasts slowly approached. It wasn't that Jiang Wang was deliberately showing off. In front of these people, it was enough to show off his strength once. The reason why he did this was because he had just discovered that after killing so many star beasts at once, the fire totem on his back suddenly gave birth to a kind of power. It was very weak, but it definitely existed. This kind of power wasn't totem power, nor was it Dao essence power. It was a very pure kind of power. Could be easily mobilized and transformed. In other words, it could be used in any kind of attack. But it seemed to be rootless. It wasn't like Dao essence or totem power that could be recovered and grown through cultivation. It was more like a temporary accumulation. It just so happened that the fire totem had become that vessel. To be more precise, the fire totem had become the vessel of this power after interacting with the bone lotus flower. In order to verify his theory, he used the second 8-note flame sparrow. The result was just as Jiang Wang had expected. The fire totem's power was indeed related to the killing of the star beasts. After killing this wave of star beasts, it had grown once again. Perhaps it wasn't that he didn't gain anything from killing the star beasts. It was just that the people of the Void Continent hadn't noticed, or perhaps they hadn't found a way to pick up the spoils. Jiang Wang didn't feel anything when he killed the first star beast. It was only after the 8-note flame sparrow cleared the battlefield that he truly felt the birth of this power. He vaguely sensed that this change had something to do with the bone lotus flower's influence on the fire totem. Otherwise, it would be very difficult to explain why the people of the Void Continent hadn't discovered this matter for so many years. Only the bone lotus flower, which didn't belong to this world and carried the influence of an unfamiliar god, could cause some mysterious changes to the fire totem. It was just that Jiang Wang couldn't see the source of this at all. At the same time, he sensed that this power might have something to do with the stars on the star beasts' bodies. Perhaps it could be called star power for the time being? Killing star beasts and accumulating star power was a complete process. If there was a cultivation system that used the star power he had just named as its core, it would create a positive cycle. That just so happened to form a positive cycle. Killing star beasts was cultivation. Star beasts were no longer a disaster, but a kind of resource. Of course, this was just a momentary fantasy. At present, this kind of power was only a temporary accumulation of energy in the fire totem. It was like a withered pond without a spring. No matter how much water it accumulated, it could only be used as a temporary source. With Jiang Wang's current knowledge and ability, there was no way he could create a cultivation system with this as its core. But then again, there was indeed such a possibility. If Jiang Wang were to reveal his discoveries and conjectures, all the experts of the Void Continent would probably come knocking on his door to study him. Judging from the current situation, even the rootless water would be of great use to Jiang Wang. What did the pure power stored in the fire totem that could be used at any time represent? It represented explosive power beyond one's own limits. At the very least, this was a brand new trump card on the Void Continent. Compared to those chess players, chess ministers and pawns, it was much more direct and perhaps much more useful. Admittedly, the amount of star power the two-wheeled star beasts had obtained wasn't much. Even if he used it now, it wouldn't increase his combat strength at all. But with so much star power, what if he accumulated it to 100 or 1,000 times? Was there a limit to the capacity of the fire totem as a vessel? When the accumulation reached a certain limit, a qualitative change would occur. This would be his weapon in the battle against Lei Zhanqian, Jiang Wuxie, Fang Chong, and the others in life and death. While he was pondering, the next wave of star beasts approached. Back off, let me handle this. I'll take on Yu Tian myself. Jiang Wang waved his sleeves in a rare display of arrogance. Chapter 491. Warriors who fought on the line between life and death worshipped the strong the most. Jiang Wang was a man from the blue sky, who was respected by the Void Continent's current traditions. He had only come to the catacombs to select warriors for the game of life and death. He didn't need to interfere with the battle against the star beasts, but not only did he interfere, but he also became the main force of the battle from a bystander. Now, he wanted to block Yu Tian all by himself. The Joyfire tribe's warriors almost went crazy when they heard this. Well done! This is a true powerhouse. A hero from the blue sky. The bearded man was naturally happy to see someone block Yu Tian all by himself and reduce the tribe's casualties. Thus, he only ordered 2 squads of warriors to prepare for battle and provide support to Jiang Wang at any time. The rest of the warriors dispersed to rest. An environment like the catacombs was just too suitable for Dao techniques like the 8-tone flame sparrow. Especially since that hole was perfectly covered by the 8-tone flame sparrow, and the 8-tone flame sparrow was indeed effective against star beasts. Thus, the only thing to consider was the problem of his Dao essence reserves. How abundant was Jiang Wang's Dao essence reserves now? Generally speaking, Soaring Dragon Realm cultivators couldn't mobilize more Dao essence than Ascension Realm cultivators. Because of the existence of the worldly isolated island, Soaring Dragon Realm cultivators had to rely on a large portion of their Dao essence. Otherwise, the island would be in danger of sinking to the bottom of the sea. Moreover, the worldly isolated island itself also needed Tao essence to stabilize the island. Jiang Wang himself did this every day without rest. If he hadn't done so, he wouldn't have been able to adapt so easily. Jiang Wang's worldly isolated island could truly be called an island. It was many times larger than the average soaring dragon realm cultivators. This also meant that the worldly isolated island had more Tao essence entangled with his worldly isolated island. Thus, even if he used the heavenly cycle star formation as a foundation, the starry stream vortex to establish the heavenly cycle, and ascended to the soaring dragon realm with his terrifying ascension realm strength, the amount of Tao essence he could mobilize didn't increase qualitatively. What made him stronger than before was mainly the higher-level Tao techniques and stronger sword technique. However, not long ago, he'd experienced the forest-ocean origin of the origin world. The worldly isolated island was filled with lush greenery and death. The worldly isolated island's foundation had been stabilized. Thus, the most obvious benefit was that a large amount of Tao energy had been released. If Jiang Wang's limit of releasing the 8-tone flame sparrow in a previous battle was between 7 to 8 times, then he would be able to release it. Now, the number was 20. When he released the 8-tone flame sparrow for the 18th time, Jiang Wang felt that his Tao energy reserves could support him for 2 more times. However, he chose to rest out of caution. The 8 tones flame sparrow 20 times also meant that he had sustained the battle prowess of the inner mansion realm. Generally speaking, in a fight, it wouldn't take more than 20 times. In most cases, these 28 tones flame sparrows were enough to support an inner mansion stage battle from beginning to end. Relying on the flying sword technique of the flying sword era's 3 ultimate techniques, Xiang Qian possessed the killing power of an inner mansion realm martial artist when he was still in the soaring dragon realm. However, it was only enough for 1 strike. Jiang Wang was still in the soaring dragon realm, but his battle prowess was on par with the inner mansion realm. If Xiang Qian's strength had not improved by leaps and bounds during this period of time, then the gap between them had already widened. The warriors of the Qinghua division once again went to the front of the hole, while Jiang Wang took out the Daoyuan stone and began to absorb it. He didn't know how long it would take to recuperate by himself. After wandering around Linzi for so long, he had accumulated a lot of Daoyuan stones. The reason why Daoyuan stones could be used as a currency between cultivators was that they had the value of replenishing cultivators' consumption. Although the process of replenishing Daoyuan couldn't be interrupted, the value of Daoyuan stones was unquestionable. Seeing the Daoyuan stones being taken out one by one and then used up, Jiang Wang's strength also became abundant again. The bearded man was a little envious as he watched from the side. Our totem pool is limited. We can't rely on it. Moreover, it's far away in the fire temple. It's a waste of time to go back and forth. Most of the warriors can only rely on themselves to recover. Your stones are pretty good, aren't they? Jiang Wang didn't respond. He had seen this kind of thing many times. This was equivalent to Jiang Anan coming up to him while he was eating and asking, "What is this? Is this delicious?" She actually didn't care whether this thing was delicious or not, but whether he could give her a bite. Alas! The bearded man sighed and said, "Because totem power is limited, so many good children have been sacrificed in vain. Their power systems are different. Even if I give it to you, you won't be able to replenish your totem power." Jiang Wang was speechless, but he still put a few used Daoyuan stones in front of him. "You can take them and study them." "Okay." The bearded man waved his hand, and the few Daoyuan stones disappeared. Jiang Wang recovered and stepped forward again. He continued to make hand seals and continued to use the 8-tone flame sparrow. Ever since they had participated in guarding the Wuji catacombs, the warriors of the High Fire Division had never felt so relaxed. That outsider could always use magical, totem spells to eliminate Star Beast. The wonderful and mighty 8 tones of symphony also continued to be played in the catacombs. This sound was intoxicating. The star beasts were always getting stronger. Although the degree of increase wasn't as exaggerated as at the beginning, they were indeed getting stronger. This was reflected in the increasing number of stars, and also in the fact that the 8-tone flame sparrow could no longer eliminate all the star beasts at once. After the 8-tone flame sparrow, the warriors of the High Fire Division still had to attack. Slowly, after the 8-tone flame sparrow was released, the number of surviving star beasts increased. In the mighty 8 tones of symphony, time passed by bit by bit. Something's wrong. High Fire Origin Chen looked worried. Why is this star beast tide going on for so long? That's right. The other warriors also suddenly realized. Previously, Jiang Wang had been eliminating the star beasts by himself. They didn't feel too much pressure, so they had almost ignored this matter. In the past, in a star beast tide, 30 to 40 waves of star beasts were normal. 60 waves was already a dangerous situation. However, in this star beast tide, based on the number of times Jiang Wang had released the 8-tone flame sparrow, there were already more than 100 waves, almost 200 waves. Jiang Wang had rested and rested more than 10 times. The bearded man's expression was also very serious. He had discovered this matter earlier than High Fire Origin Chen and had already ordered the resting warriors to prepare for battle. On the other hand, Jiang Wang, who had been fighting at the front, didn't know the usual situation of the star beast tide, so he thought this was a normal phenomenon. However, the Tao origin stones in his storage box were almost used up. When Jiang Wang rested and rested again, he said to the bearded man, "I have no way to replenish my Tao origin stones. From now on, we can only fight with swordsmanship." The bearded man nodded. He couldn't ask for more from Jiang Wang. He ordered casually, "Go and ask the chief. Tell him that there's a change in the Wuji catacombs." Then he raised his voice and roared, "All warriors on standby." At this moment, High Fire Qiming, what are you doing? Trash. I don't need your help. Don't affect the formation. Jiang Wang killed the star beast in front of him with a sword. He turned around and saw, High Fire Qiming had stood up from the corner he was sitting in. With a strange expression, he walked step by step toward the cave. He didn't care about the scoldings and accusations along the way. He saw that Jiang Wang had also turned around to look at him. Only then did he return a smile, his voice calm. "It seems like a voice is calling me. Qing Tian," he said. "I'm not afraid anymore." Chapter 492. After saying this, Qing Huiqiming suddenly sped up and started to run. As the highest leader of Wuji catacombs, the full-bearded man sensed something was wrong and hurriedly shouted, "Stop him!" The soldiers along the way went to stop him. But Qing Huiqiming made a few turns and passed through the crowd, heading straight for Yutian. They couldn't stop him. At this moment, the strength Qing Huiqiming displayed was far above these soldiers. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, whoosh whoosh whoosh. The howling wind from Yutian grew louder, as though it was drumming for him, cheering him on. Qing Huiqiming was like a whirlwind, sweeping past Jiang Wang. Jiang Wang saw the opportunity and grabbed. But he grabbed empty air. He had confidence in Qing Huiqiming's strength. But Qing Huiqiming's speed exceeded his expectations in this instant. There was no second chance. Qing Huiqiming had already surpassed Jiang Wang's position. Without hesitation, it could even be said that he leapt into Yutian. This strange scene caused everyone to be greatly shocked. "Don't fall, if you fall, you'll be gone." This was what Qing Huiqiming had said to Jiang Wang. Leaping into the dim heaven was undoubtedly equivalent to suicide. But why would Qing Huiqiming suddenly think of suicide? And looking at his state before he leapt into Yutian, it didn't look like he was going to commit suicide. His last words, he said he was no longer afraid. Because of what? What voice was calling him? Other than the sound of the wind, Jiang Wang was sure he didn't hear anything else in Yutian. Was it something only he could hear? Or did that so-called calling voice not exist? Qing Huiqiming leaping into Yutian didn't cause any ripples either. Yutian didn't seem to be affected at all. Even the star dots that came closer didn't change. Qing Huiqiming seemed to have completely disappeared just like that. No traces were left behind. No one spoke, no one knew what to say. Only when the full bearded man shouted and the star beasts leapt out did a new round of killing start. It seemed like nothing had happened, but the young shaman lord of Qing Hua tribe became a thing of the past. Without enough Tao energy to replenish, he could not use the 8-tone flame sparrow frequently. If he only relied on the sword style, the efficiency of killing star beasts would be greatly reduced. However, the warriors in the Wuji catacombs were veterans in dealing with star beasts. With the addition of Jiang Wang, a powerful and seemingly tireless force, the pressure on them was greatly reduced. As more and more star beasts leaped out and were destroyed, the stars in Yutian's sky became sparser. This wave of astral beasts' attacks was about to end. But at this moment the sharp-eyed people could see that in the dim sky visible to the naked eye, a dense cluster of stars suddenly appeared. These stars were extremely dense, so dense that they could only appear on the body of the same star beast. The number of stars was not a few dozen, nor was it 100. Instead, there were tens of thousands of them. It was impossible to count them all at once. The entire nether space within the hole seemed to brighten for a moment. The strength of a star beast increased with the number of stars it had. In that case, how powerful was this star beast? At least in the history of the Wuji catacombs, the strongest star beast that had appeared was only a little over 100 stars. Pass down the order. The bearded man's voice was extremely solemn. Everyone, prepare to fight to the death. Jiang Wang heard the leader of the warriors emphasize this as if to boost his own morale. We must not let it leave the catacombs and bask in the starlight of Dubhe. Jiang Wang tightened his grip on his long sword and did not speak. The stronger the star beast, the more star power accumulated in the totem on its back after it was killed. Of course, he did not lack the courage to fight. But if he really could not win, he would not die here in vain. Under everyone's nervous gaze, the tens of thousands of densely packed stars came closer and closer, closer and closer. But for some reason they suddenly disappeared. The wind that had been howling all this time suddenly became still. In Yutian, nothing could be seen except for the light of the stars. But Jiang Wang had a vague feeling that the terrifying 1,000-star or even 10,000-star star beast had turned around and left. Ordinary star beasts were killed without even a scream, as if they were completely unconscious. Then, when it reached the 1,000-star or 10,000-star star beast level, would it develop intelligence? What was Yutian? How were star beasts formed? It's gone. Was it scared away by us? When have you ever heard of star beasts being scared? They're going to charge to the surface like crazy. Then what's the reason? The Qinghua tribe's warriors discussed animatedly. They were relieved, but also puzzled. Jiang Wang sheathed his sword and flexed his wrists. He had been a bit nervous just now. Does it have anything to do with Qiming? Qinghua Yuanshan suddenly asked amidst the clamor. The bearded man stared blankly at Yutian, not saying anything. If there was only one catacombs in the world, then people might think that Yutian was only as big as a hole. But the number of catacombs on the floating continent was shocking, and many tribes had to fight star beasts all day long. That was why people knew that Yutian was as boundless as Qingtian. Countless generations of people had searched for its secrets, but no one had been able to explain it to this day. Clang clang clang, clang clang clang. The metal door made 3 long and 4 short sounds. It was an extremely rhythmic sound. Someone had come down and requested to enter the catacombs. Then came the sound of the metal door opening. Chief. The chief is here. It was obvious that Qinghua Gaoqi had a lot of prestige in the Qinghua tribe. The warriors in the Wuji catacombs were very respectful to him, even if these warriors couldn't replenish their totemic power in time most of the time. Even if they were in the most dangerous places at all times. This was because Qinghua Gao Qi had been a warrior fighting in the various catacombs since the very beginning. In terms of the number of star beasts he had killed, no one in the Qinghua tribe could compare to him. The strongest star beast that people knew of in the history of the Qinghua tribe had 124 stars. It had been killed by Qinghua Gao Qi himself. He was the chief of the Qinghua tribe, and also its strongest and bravest warrior. Qinghua Gao Qi walked through the path that the warriors made way for him. He walked to the side of the hole and looked straight at Yu Tian, not saying anything for a long time. He already knew what was going on, but his expression was solemn, and no one could tell what he was thinking. He stood beside the bearded man. His tall body was like a mountain. After a long while, he retracted his gaze and said to Jiang Wang first, "Sir from Qing Tian, thank you for your hard work." Right now, he maintained enough respect and politeness, probably because of Jiang Wang's contribution in the previous Star Beast tide. These are all the good men of the Qinghua tribe. Pick 16 suitable ones and go back to the tribe to train and prepare for the chess game of life and death. He didn't wait for Jiang Wang to respond. He turned his head and ordered, "Qinghua Heng, you will temporarily take over the position of chief. Later, you will go out with Sir from Qing Tian and take charge of the tribe." Similarly, he didn't wait for the bearded man to object and said firmly, "From today onwards, I will personally guard the Wuji catacombs." This showed that his will was unshakable, and his decision could not be changed. There was no discussion, no discussion. This was the final decision. Chapter 493. The bearded Qing Hua Heng didn't question Qing Hua's decision at all. Even though his mood was already very heavy. Qing Hua wanted to personally guard the Wuji catacombs, which meant that he believed the upcoming situation would exceed Qing Hua Heng's ability to deal with it. This was a terrifying conjecture. What kind of danger would it be? How terrifying would it be? What if even Qing Hua Heng couldn't defend it? Once the star beasts broke through, the Qinghua tribe's totem pool would dry up. Every tribe in history that had been breached was no exception. Everyone on the Void Continent understood the consequences of a depleted totem pool. And the star beasts that bathed in Dubhe's starlight would be a disaster. Tribes that had been breached would also be sinners of the Void Continent. To the Void Continent's tribes, guarding the catacombs was always their #1 priority. It surpassed everything else. "I have to stay here," Jiang Wang said. Qing Hua Heng looked at him, waiting for an explanation. "My sword skills need to be sharpened. This will give me more confidence in the game of life and death. Star beasts are very suitable target." Jiang Wang chose this reason after weighing the pros and cons. Jiang Wang was from Clear Sky, a star general and the chess master representing the Qinghua tribe in the game of life and death. He didn't belong to the Qinghua tribe. Therefore, no matter how powerful Qing Hua Heng was in the tribe, he couldn't force Jiang Wang to do anything. On the contrary, the Qinghua tribe would find a way to satisfy Jiang Wang's requests as long as they weren't too unreasonable. Besides, it was good news for the Qinghua tribe that he could help guard the catacombs. Qing Hua Heng himself had seen his strength before. "I won't interfere with your decision. But there's one thing. If you encounter an irresistible danger, please retreat first." Qing Hua Heng ordered. "Qing Hua Yuanchen, you're in charge of this. The ranking in the game of life and death might be our chance. The safety of a star general is crucial." "Don't worry, Chief," Qing Hua Yuanchen said. "Although I'm not as strong as a star general, I'll definitely stand in front of you if you encounter an irresistible danger." Jiang Wang naturally had no objections, although he didn't think he needed protection. If he encountered a danger that he couldn't resist, it would be difficult to fill in the celebration fire natal star. In the end, only Qing Hua Heng left the Wuji catacombs. It was as if Qing Huagao had personally entered the catacombs just to swap the powers and responsibilities of both parties. The star beast tide temporarily calmed down. Celebratory fire high blaze didn't adjust celebratory fire hang's arrangement. There were still 2 teams preparing for battle, 2 on standby, and the rest resting and reorganizing. As for himself, he sat down on a stone platform beside the hole and called out to Jiang Wang, "Qingtian, please take a seat." Jiang Wang understood that the leader of the Qinghua tribe probably had something to say, so he sat down beside the stone platform. "Is there a Yu-Tian in your world?" Qinghua looked at the dark Yu-Tian and suddenly asked. "At least, I haven't seen it before. It's said that the heavenly Tao is sentimental. Everything has its own reason. What kind of logic was there in a place like Yu Heaven? It was a calamity within calamities, the root of all misfortunes on the void continent. The light in the blue sky would be extinguished at night, which showed that the light could not last forever. Yu-Tian will always be Yu-Tian. Is there really eternal darkness in the world?" Qin Huagao asked Jiang Wang. "You came from the world above the blue sky. Can you dispel my doubts?" One could see that even a strong-willed warrior like him would feel lost at times. Guarding the catacombs was too difficult, too long, and there was no light at the end of the tunnel. Ordinary warriors could take turns to rest and reorganize, but existences like him and Qing Huaheng would have to face the catacombs for the rest of their lives. Jiang Wang said honestly without pretense, "I'm just an ordinary cultivator. My place in our world is very dim. Perhaps there are people in our world who can solve your problems. Maybe I can too one day, but I don't have such power right now. What do you think of Qing Huachiming?" "It's a pity for him." "A pity?" Qing Huagao paused for a moment. "Yes, it's a pity for him." Qing Huagao asked again, "You were the last person to communicate with Qing Huachiming before he jumped off Yutian. Do you think that jumping off Yutian was part of his plan?" Perhaps this was the question he really wanted to ask. Jiang Wang shook his head. "When he communicated with me, he didn't show any signs of dying. His fear of Yutian is deeply rooted, it's definitely not fake. Combined with what he said at the end, I think he was bewitched by something." Bewitched? Qing Huagao pondered for a moment. Then he smiled bitterly. "Although you only interacted for a short time, he seemed to trust you a lot. In the end, he only spoke to you. Because of his fear of Yutian, he doesn't fit in here." Jiang Wang said, "He didn't only speak to me. He said that I was the only one who was willing to listen to him." After a moment of silence, Qing Huagao clasped his hands and told a history. Qing Hua didn't know which generation the shaman priest was from. Because it was always done in secret, a lot of information wasn't preserved. Until now, no one knew who started it. After many years of research on Yutian, this shaman priest thought of a way. That was to change the fire totem and create the nether totem on top of it. He envisioned that the person with the nether totem could come into contact with Yutian and even control its origin. If he could control the origin, star beasts might not be a problem anymore. This was undoubtedly a genius idea. However, while creating the nether totem seemed feasible, it was almost impossible in reality. It was said that all the origin totems on the void continent were left behind by the creator of the universe, Sky. How could a person create such a great totem? In the end, that shaman priest couldn't complete his idea. However, perhaps because the fear brought about by Yutian was too persistent, this idea of a castle in the air was not put aside. Generations of shaman priests of the Qing Hua tribe worked hard for this, one after another. It could be said that they poured their life's blood and sweat into this idea. There was even a shaman priest who used his body to feel Yutian. After using his limbs to touch Yutian and being dissolved, he recorded his feelings verbally and completed the final leap generation after generation. The nether totem was finally completed in the hands of the previous shaman priest, Qing Huizhu Shu, who was known as the strongest shaman priest in history. Totems had to be used on humans in the end. With this kind of research, they naturally needed the corresponding test subject. As one of the strongest in the tribe, Qing Huiqiming's grandfather approved of this plan and was willing to test it with his own body. However, he was already old, and his fire totem had been cultivated to a very high level. Therefore, Qing Huiqiming's father became one of the test subjects since young. Over the long period of time, all the test subjects who accepted the nether totem failed without question. Qing Huiqiming's father, on the other hand, had astonishing talent and an extraordinary affinity with the nether totem. This made Qing Huizhu Shu place high hopes on him. In order to better accept the nether totem, all of the test subjects of the nether totem were kept in the dark about it. They were covered up in the name of a special force in the tribe. Before the final experiment, they disguised themselves as ordinary people. The tribe also gave them special permission to not participate in guarding the catacombs. When Qing Huiqiming was 5 years old, his father's strength had reached a limit. Therefore, Qing Huizhu Shu thought that the time was right. He threw Qing Huiqiming's father into the catacombs for the first time. There were a total of 3 test subjects with him. The result was very unfortunate. The other 2 were silently eliminated by Yu Tian. When Qing Huiqiming's father discovered his identity as a test subject, he showed strong resistance. When he found out that the so-called special totem on him was actually just an experiment with Yu Tian, he used extremely violent methods to destroy his own totem. He escaped the catacombs for life. Qing Huiqiming's grandfather was a brave warrior who fought for the tribe his whole life. He couldn't stand his son's cowardice, so he killed him with his own hands. He turned to raise his own grandson. He used his father's cowardice as an example to raise Qing Huiqiming's bravery. He didn't care about his old age and went to the catacombs every year to set an example for his grandson. Even his accidental death in battle was to motivate Qing Huiqiming. After Qing Huiqiming's father and grandfather died, Qing Huizhu Shu adopted Qing Huiqiming. In name, he was adopted, but in reality, he put him under his nose and raised him personally. Qing Huiqiming was the imprint of this generation's nether totem. As Qing Huiqiming gradually grew up, he became a brave person. He was filled with hatred towards the catacombs and had asked to fight the catacombs countless times. But humans weren't plants. How could they be heartless? After a long time together, Qing Huizhu Shu slowly started to treat Qing Huiqiming as his own child. Under the great inertia of history, he continued to push forward the idea of the nether totem. But more and more, he considered Qing Huiqiming's safety. He even told Qing Huigaoqi clearly that he didn't want Qing Huiqiming to follow in the footsteps of those brave warriors and be eliminated by Yu Tian. The nether totem became more and more concrete. The great idea seemed to be nearing its end. But Qing Huizhu Shu started to reflect more and more on whether this idea was right or wrong. He even started to question the meaning of the efforts of so many generations of shamans. In his later research, no one knew what he discovered. The only thing they knew was that he firmly started to reject the idea of the nether totem. He passed the shaman's inheritance to Qing Huiqiming and lit the unique fire pattern between his brows. He didn't mention the nether totem, and didn't allow anyone who knew about it to mention it to Qing Huiqiming. All this time, Qing Huiqiming thought that the totem on his body was a special fire totem that had failed and needed to be kept a secret. His power came from the shaman's fire pattern. The last time they entered the catacombs, Qing Hua bamboo scroll was supposed to bring Qing Huiqiming along. However, for some reason, Qing Huiqiming was left outside the fortress while he went down the catacombs alone. He sat at the entrance of the catacombs for 3 days and 3 nights. He didn't sleep or rest. In the end, tears of blood flowed from his eyes. He only left one sentence: the origin totem is not something that can be created by humans. With limited strength, you seek the ability to create the world. You waste your life and hurt a genius. You're wrong. Then, he leaped into Yutian. No one knew what Qing Huizhu Shu, the strongest shaman in history, saw at the last moment of his life. This might be a riddle that would remain unsolved forever. Wrong. Countless generations of Qing Hua tribes sacrificed themselves for this. They fought bravely for this. But in the end, there was only this comment: how hopeless! History had its own power. After listening to Qing Hua Qiming's story quietly, Jiang Wang roughly understood his feelings. But understanding didn't mean agreement. Understanding didn't mean respect. So? You want to revive that idea? Jiang Wang asked. So you watched as your tribe ignored and despised Qing Hua Qiming. You watched as his cautiousness was mocked because you wanted to force him to face the catacombs. You wanted to force him to reactivate the Nether Totem? To Qing Hua Qiming, I might be a despicable person. But to the entire Qing Hua tribe, I am willing to sacrifice everything, including my morals and reputation. I have a clear conscience. Qing Hua Qiming said. It's reasonable for him to blame me. But I don't regret my choice. I don't know what Qing Hua Qiming is thinking. I don't know if he ever blamed you. Jiang Wang shook his head. But I do know one thing. Qing Huizhu Shu, who pushed the Nether Totem to its final stage, definitely knows Yutian better than you do. Have you ever wondered why he gave up? If you haven't even thought about this question, or if you've thought about it, you can't figure it out. If you don't even know why he gave up and why he was in despair, where did you get the courage to continue pushing this matter? Qing Hua Qiming was speechless. Jiang Wang naturally felt indignant on Qing Hua Qiming's behalf. But ask yourself honestly, if you were in an environment like the Qing Hua clan, faced with the seemingly endless star beast tide, and faced with the source of calamity that seemed to be unsolvable, how could you not regard the possibility that was once close at hand as a life-saving straw? Qing Hua Qiming's choice might not be wise, but it might not be bright either. But in his position, this seemed to be the logical thing to do. Actually, you feel very afraid too, don't you? Qing Hua Qiming suddenly leaped into Yutian in a bizarre manner. Star beasts that seemed to have 10,000 stars approached and left. You realized that you couldn't explain all of this. You realized that even though you knew a lot and understood a lot, you still didn't understand Yutian at all. You didn't understand that Nether Totem at all. Jiang Wang asked again, actually, you're very afraid, aren't you? Everything seems to be out of control, and you only just realized your ignorance. Yes, I am indeed afraid of this. Qing Hua Qiming didn't deny it. He was a tribe leader who would fuss over every ounce of totem power. He was a decision-maker who would coldly calculate the value and send the elderly to the battlefield of life and death. He was a warrior who fought against the catacombs for half his life and always stood on the front lines. He was someone who wouldn't hesitate to sacrifice others, but at the same time, he was also someone who was willing to take responsibility. He said, "That's why I've decided to guard this place personally. I don't know what kind of changes will happen here. If the ending is good, the glory will belong to Qing Hua. If the ending is bad, I'll take responsibility for the mistake." "I hope that it will be a good ending," Jiang Wang said, "even though I don't agree with your choice, even though I think that Qing Hua Qiming probably doesn't need any glory. But I still hope that it will be a good ending. P.S. 4K chapters, 2 chapters combined into one. That's why there's no update at night, no need to wait. I wrote the sentence above yesterday, so there's a but. Thank you for reading slowly and becoming the chief of this book. That's why there will be an extra update at night." Chapter 494. Time was moving forward slowly. It didn't stop for anyone. The game of life and death had finally begun. Qinghua tribe selected a star general and naturally got a place in the game of life and death. But almost all the tribes and teams had already entered the game. Jiang Wang was still guarding the catacombs. Not only did the people outside not understand, Qinghua Heng sent people down many times to ask. Even Qinghua Gao Qi asked Jiang Wang again and again. But Jiang Wang only answered every time. It wasn't time yet. The rules of the game of life and death were simple. The whole game was square. There were 25 starting points in every direction. 100 teams set off from the starting points and moved toward the center of the game. The order of entering the center determined the order of the game. But there were many changes in the details. It was quite complicated. First of all, the 100 starting points weren't connected to the center in a straight line. Instead, they crossed each other. After crossing each other, only one side could continue to move forward while the other side had to move backward. This meant that there would be competition. Second, the way forward wasn't a flat land. There were many checkpoints and obstacles. After breaking through the checkpoints, there were different choices. For example, how many positions could he move forward quickly? For example, how many positions could he eliminate obstacles in front of him? He could also choose to let others move backward or forward. He could also choose to increase the obstacles for others to move forward. This meant that it was possible to choose opponents for himself or even manipulate others to fight against each other. Just this point alone would lead to countless changes. In short, the game of life and death wasn't a simple battle of trapped beasts. The first opportunity was very important. In history, there were people who chose to enter the game later. But they usually didn't get a good ranking. In fact, before he could even enter the center point, the game had already ended. Jiang Wang insisted on guarding the catacombs in the name of sword practice. Of course, he had his reasons. The main reason was that the star power accumulated in the totem behind him hadn't reached the limit. This card didn't come easy. He had to play it well. It was worth mentioning that during the time when Qinghua Gao Qi guarded the Wuji catacombs, there weren't any unusual movements. The frequency of Star Beasts' attacks wasn't much different from before. Star Beasts of the 1,000-star level didn't appear again. Red Thunder Tribe has entered 10. Red Thunder Tribe has entered 20. Subduing Fire Tribe has been blocked in the first checkpoint. They've been eliminated. Outside the life and death chess, there was a stone tablet that could reflect the progress of the game. All the tribes on the Void Continent used the stone tablet to observe the progress of the game of life and death. The High Fire Tribe was no exception. Qinghuaheng, who was in charge of the overall situation from the outside, would send warriors to the Wuji catacombs to report whenever there were any changes. Wave after wave of warriors came to report the news. He didn't know what time Jiang Wang was talking about, so he could only urge him in this way. Jiang Wang was the chess master, who was responsible for deciding everything in the game of life and death. He had to stay in the catacombs and wait for the right opportunity. Others could only watch helplessly. 30 members of the Swift Fire Division have entered. The Pure Water Tribe met the Guangtu Tribe. The Guangtu Tribe was annihilated and eliminated. The life and death chess this time seemed to be very intense. Not long after it started, many tribes had already been eliminated. By the end of the first day, the fastest Swift Fire Division had already advanced 180 rank. Jiang Wang remembered that it was Jiang Wuxia's tribe as the chess master. When night fell, it was time for the life and death chess to rest and reorganize. All the tribes would stop at this time to review the situation and determine the strategy for the next day. No one would move at night. This was because the life and death chess had a very important rule. Life and death were everywhere in the game of life and death. They lived during the day and died during the night. The game of life and death had a starting point and a center point. There were also spawn points scattered everywhere. If one couldn't find a spawn point and set up camp before night fell, the outcome would be death. This extremely important and cruel rule was the origin of the name Life and Death Chess. The fight for the spawn points was an extremely important part of the game of life and death. The first day has already ended. Are you still not leaving? Qing Huagao asked again. Let's wait a little longer, Jiang Wang said. They had just finished a round of battle against the Star Beast Tide. The night of life and death chess had stopped, but the star beasts from dim heaven had no concept of time. With Jiang Wang and Qing Huagao around, the star beast tide, which had been difficult in the past, wasn't too difficult now. Especially Jiang Wang, who worked even harder than Qing Huagao, as if he had some great grudge against the star beast. What are you waiting for? Qing Huagao really wanted to ask this, but he knew that Jiang Wang had no obligation to answer his question. These few days, because he was worried that something might happen to dim heaven, he was so worried that he seemed to have aged a few years. But after guarding for a few days, nothing happened. His emotions slowly calmed down, and he started to worry more about the life and death chess. After all, this concerned the fate of the tribe for 100 years. And Qing Huachiming in the end, Qing Huachiming was like those seniors, silently disappearing in Yu heaven. It seemed like nothing happened. Maybe the idea of the dim totem was wrong from the start. The next day, the people Qing Huaheng sent came one after another to the catacombs. Sometimes, when they encountered a battle in the catacombs, the person who came first would wait for the next person to report the situation together. The entire Qing Hua tribe was anxious, except for Jiang Wang. Of course, there were many people in Wuji catacombs who wanted Jiang Wang to stay. His presence greatly reduced the casualties of the warriors in Wuji catacombs. Red Thunder tribe and Swift Fire tribe met. This step was completed under the leadership of Ironwood tribe, and Clean Water tribe also added fuel to the fire. Swift Fire tribe lost. Only the chess master survived, and retreated 100 positions. Red Thunder tribe advanced 10 positions. Jiang Wang didn't find out who the chess master of Ironwood tribe was, but just from the aspect of chess, he seemed to have the upper hand in the battle between Red Thunder tribe and Swift Fire tribe. Of course, it might be that Red Thunder tribe's chess master, Lei Zhanqian, beat him at his own game, and was very confident that he would step on Jiang Wuxie. From Jiang Wang's short impression of him, this was very likely. Although the Swift Fire tribe represented by Jiang Wuxie hadn't been eliminated, they had fallen from the first tier. Qing Huachiming was worried, but Jiang Wang calmly started to adjust his breath. In fact, the time limit he set for himself was 2 days. He had carefully studied the game of life and death. If he delayed for more than 2 days, he would never be able to catch up with the first tier. So 2 days after the game of life and death began, no matter how much star power he had accumulated, he had to set off. Unless he gave up the first place. It was only the second day. He was firmly carrying out his plan, so no matter how the game of life and death progressed, it didn't affect him. People who worried about personal gains and losses couldn't do anything well. A morning passed, and Qing Huaheng had sent 3 groups of people to report. Jiang Wang listened carefully, but didn't say anything. The Red Thunder Division has entered 370 people. The warriors who came to report in the afternoon were as anxious as ants on a hot pan. On the first day, the fastest Swift Fire tribe only advanced 180 positions. After defeating Qing Huachiming, Red Thunder tribe advanced by leaps and bounds. Before the end of the day, they had advanced 370 positions. Jiang Wang didn't say anything. He just pulled out his sword and stood up. Another round of star beasts had begun. Qing Huachiming moved back and forth at the edge of the underground cavern. He usually only attacked when the warriors were in danger. Jiang Wang asked him not to show too much strength because he wanted to practice his sword. He left most of the star beasts to Jiang Wang. Qing Huachiming could only do as he was told. Without the unlimited supply of Tao origin stones, Jiang Wang's efficiency in killing star beasts was much lower than before. But compared to the other warriors of Qing Hua Qiming, he was still accurate and efficient. Sword light flashed, and the last star beast disappeared. Yu Tian calmed down again. Qing Hua was dispirited. "My Go Master, are you still not going to depart?" he asked as if it was a routine matter. Jiang Wang sheathed his sword. "The time has come." He turned around and walked out. He was very clear about one thing. The last few star beasts he killed didn't increase his star power. The star power accumulated by the fire totem had reached its limit. Chapter 495. Fine, then you can continue to wait. What? Qing Hua Blaze's voice suddenly grew louder. Jiang Wang suddenly wanted to move, but he was not used to it. Jiang Wang stopped and asked, "What, I can't go now?" "You can, of course you can," Qing Hua Blaze hurriedly said. "After fighting side by side for so long, you should have some understanding of the warrior's strength. See which warriors you want to bring." Jiang Wang shook his head. "Didn't you already choose people before? Let's just take them." Qing Hua Blaze smiled apologetically. "Hasn't that matter already passed?" For the Qing Hua division, he was actually willing to lower himself. One after another, without complaint, serving Jiang Wang like he was a lord. "Sir Star General," Qing Hua Yuanshan said somewhat indignantly, "do you look down on our warriors?" "It's not that I look down on you," Jiang Wang said, "but just me alone is enough." Qing Hua Blaze chased after him for a few steps. Jiang Wang's current overconfidence was different from the feeling he gave people before. After a few steps, Qing Hua Blaze had already made his decision, so he said, "Let Yuanshan accompany you." Jiang Wang did not refuse this time. "Then let's go." Qing Hua Blaze gave Qing Hua Yuanshan a meaningful glance. Of course, he could not let those old men accompany Jiang Wang to the life and death game. Jiang Wang had already proven his strength. The Qing Hua division was going to fight for a ranking this time. Qing Hua Yuanshan also understood. He picked 15 warriors on the spot and silently followed Jiang Wang. Including him, the 16 warriors guarding the Wuji catacombs were the Qing Hua division's candidates to enter the life and death game this time. As expected, Jiang Wang did not say anything. He would not go so far as to force those 16 old men to come. Not willing to pick people, including not revealing the plan before, was to make these people anxious. In essence, it was to express the resentment that arose from Qing Hua Qiming jumping down the Yu Tian. If it were not for Qing Hua Blaze forcing Qing Hua Qiming to enter the catacombs, this matter would not have happened. High blazing celebratory flame understood this, which was why he allowed himself to be scolded and mocked. Even his undisguised anxiousness for the past few days could not possibly not be to vent Jiang Wang's anger. In front of the big picture of the Qing Hua division, he did not care about his personal honor. They had stayed in the Wuji catacombs for a few days. Every day they cycled between resting and fighting. Leaving the fortress all of a sudden felt like a lifetime had passed. It was afternoon on the Void Continent and the sky was still bright. Qing Hua Yuanshan led the way at the front, flying swiftly. The group rushed to Qing Hua Division's fire temple as fast as they could. Qing Hua Huang had been guarding this place recently, ready to send the chess master to the chess of life and death at any time. Seeing the fire temple, Jiang Wang had a vague illusion that the fire Qiming was still there. But reason told him that this was impossible. The new shaman priest had already taken office and he still wore that exaggerated mask. This shaman priest had nothing to do with Qing Hua Qiming's line. A shaman priest who could not overcome his fear and did not dare to enter the catacombs was enough to become the tribe's disgrace. The Qing Hua division had been nurturing a new shaman priest since a long time ago. But due to the special nature of the shaman priest's identity, it could not be easily replaced. Jiang Wang did not say anything to this new shaman priest. Of course, the new shaman priest also maintained the dignity of a shaman priest. Under the guidance of the new shaman priest, the group walked into the fire temple. After walking through the long passageway, one side of the passageway led to the totem pool that Jiang Wang had visited last time, and the other side led to his destination this time, the same dark room. In the center of the room stood a door densely covered in flame patterns. There was nothing else. The new shaman priest stood in front of the door and made a gesture of invitation. There was no need for any ceremony. Or rather, the anxious Qing Huaheng had already made all the preparations. He was only waiting for Jiang Wang to come. Qinghua Yuanchen walked to the front and pushed the door open. Behind the door was a wall of fire. Qinghua Yuanchen did not hesitate and directly stepped into the wall of fire. Jiang Wang was the second to enter. The wall of fire was not scorching. As soon as he stepped in, the scene changed. The first thing he saw was a huge stone door. A misty light flowed on the stone door, making it impossible to see what was inside. Next to the stone door stood a tall stone slab. It should be the stone tablet chess record. The entire chessboard of life and death was shrunk on the stone slab. Different places and different objects emitted different shapes, colors, and intensities of light. Among them, there were the most glowing dots. The intensity of the light was also the same. Moreover, they were constantly moving. Those were the participants of the life and death chess record. He couldn't see what they were facing. He could only observe where they were going and who they were meeting. After meeting, the light dot that continued to move forward would naturally be the winner. For example, the fire tribe had red light dots, the water tribe had blue light dots, the earth tribe had yellow light dots, the plague tribe had black light dots, and so on. As for the specific details, there were slight differences between each tribe. Perhaps only the natives of the Void Continent could accurately distinguish them. This stone door was the entrance to the Qinghua tribe's chess game. A few Qinghua tribe members were guarding here, constantly paying attention to the stone tablet chess record. They were quite happy to see Qinghua Yuanchen and the others come over. According to the rules passed down from generation to generation, they needed to confirm their identity on the stone tablet. For example, Jiang Wang was the chess master, so he had to place his hand on the master's palm. Qinghua Yuanchen was one of the two players. After confirming it, Qinghua Yuanchen glanced at the sky and said, "Master, there's not much time left. Why don't we set off tomorrow?" Jiang Wang asked, "How much longer until nightfall?" "The sky is very punctual during the life and death chess game," Qinghua Yuanchen said. "There's still an hour left." "Go in," Jiang Wang said. If they went in now, it meant that they would fail if they couldn't occupy the first birth point within an hour. They would be directly erased by the life and death chess game. Alternatively, they could choose to give up before then and withdraw from the game. After withdrawing, they wouldn't be able to enter again. This decision was undoubtedly risky. However, the 16 Qinghua tribe warriors, including Qinghua Yuanchen, didn't raise any objections. Jiang Wang was the chess master, and Jiang Wang's decision was the command. Regardless of their standpoint, they were all very qualified warriors after years of fighting in the largest and most dangerous Wuji catacombs within the Qinghua tribe's territory. After stepping through the stone door, the misty light carried with it a mysterious law. Jiang Wang sensed that his extremely thin totemic power had disappeared completely. This was the reason why Void Continent experts couldn't use their supernatural powers in the life and death chess game. What made him heave a sigh of relief was that the star power stored in his fire totem wasn't affected. This meant that his preparations hadn't been in vain. The life and death chess game indeed only targeted totemic power. Jiang Wang himself had Dao energy, so the disappearance of some totemic power didn't affect him at all. As for the 16 warriors behind him, they all looked fine. Before coming to the life and death chess game, they'd left most of their totemic power in the fire temple's totemic pool. It was said that this was something that Qinghua Gao had repeatedly emphasized. They were truly very thrifty. Perhaps Qinghua Gao's starting point was stingy, but the end result was very good. At least these 16 warriors had saved a lot of time to adapt. After stepping into the life and death chess game, Jiang Wang and the others found themselves in a circle of light. This was probably the range of the starting point. In front of them was a path paved with huge stone slabs. Every stone slab was exactly the same size, with a length and width of 160 feet. A stone slab was a position in the life and death chess game, or a chess position. The range of visibility wasn't very wide. It could even be said that it was very narrow. Most of the environment was hidden in a dense fog. P.S. Why are my recommendation votes always in the 800s? I often forget to ask for votes, but I never forget to update. Don't forget to vote for me. Chapter 496. This fog obscured one's vision, and could not be dispelled by any means. It belonged to the fog of the rules of the game of life and death. Back in little forest town of Maplewood City, after the entire town was sacrificed by the White Bone Path, it also produced fog because of its connection to the netherworld. Of course, the levels of these two types of fog were different. However, in the game of life and death, the fog of the rules of life and death could be seen as the fog that separated the two worlds. Time passed quickly. In the blink of an eye, a year had passed. Of the brothers who went to Little Forest Town with him, only Du Yehu was still around. He wondered how he was doing in the Jiujiang Xian armor. In the eyes of Qinhua Yuanchen, Jiang Wang was only slightly startled before moving forward. In Jiang Wang's hand was a bright yellow silk scroll. It was the contract of the king that he had signed when he descended through the Star General Point ceremony. On the front was the contract and his blood signature. When the back was opened, it was flickering with light spots. It was almost equivalent to carrying a small stone tablet chess record. The players could use it to control their position and that of the other competitors. It was convenient for them to play chess. The only difference was that the stone tablet chess record could display the positions of the competing teams at all times. Behind the chessboard, the contract of the king could only display the positions of all competitors once a day. One had to grasp the opportunity to use it. Jiang Wang did not hesitate to use today's opportunity. At this moment, the red light spots that they represented were at the outermost periphery of the game of life and death. The purple light spots at the innermost periphery were undoubtedly the Red Thunder Division represented by Lei Zhanqian. The Qinhua Division did not need to consider the teams in front for the time being. Now, the most important thing was to find the birth point and occupy it. The game of life and death was divided into chess master, chess player, chess minister, and chess pawn. Each identity had its own meaning. The most important manifestation was in the vision of the rules. The reason why it was called the rules was because the vision in the game of life and death was not affected by personal conditions. It was produced by the rules. In other words, no matter how perfect the eye's aperture was, no matter how powerful the eye technique was, if the rules did not allow it, one would not be able to see it. And if the rules allowed it, even a blind person could see it. In the game of life and death, the chess master could see 7 chess masters. That was to say, front, back, left, and right, the 7 chess positions were all within his field of vision and were not covered by the fog of laws. The 2 Go players could only see the 6 players from a slanted position. For example, 4 stone slabs formed the Chinese character Tian, and the player was on the stone slab at the bottom left corner. Under the restrictions of the rules, the player could not see front, back, left, or right, only diagonally. For example, the stone slab at the top right corner. With the original position as the center, there were 6 consecutive positions in any diagonal direction. The 6 chess forms could only be seen by leaping positions. 4 leaps could be seen. For example, if 3 stone slabs formed the word mu, if the player was at the bottom stone slab, he would not be able to see the situation of the middle stone slab. He would only be able to see the top stone slab. In this way, he could see the scenes of the 4 jumps in different directions. 8 pawns. He could only meet one of them. This was the simplest. He could only see the front, back, left, right, and diagonally. It was precisely because the chess master, chess player, chess minister, and chess pawn all had different vision of the rules that many combinations of vision could be derived. There was no doubt about the importance of vision. In life and death chess, it was not recommended to play alone. Therefore, after the Swift Fire Division was completely wiped out and only the chess master was left, the other tribes did not think highly of the Swift Fire Division's chances, even if the chess master of the Swift Fire Division was extraordinary. Of course, people like Jiang Wang and the others who knew Jiang Wuxie's identity would not let their guard down. Each stone slab that represented the chess positions was 160 feet long and wide. It could completely accommodate 17 people standing together. This might be safer and more reliable, but it obviously could not maximize the use of the vision of the rules. As the chess master, Jiang Wang could see the situation of the 7 players in front of him and to his left and right. The chess player had the responsibility of protecting the chess master. 2 chess players, including Qinghua Yuanchen, stood with Jiang Wang, flanking him on both sides. They could help Jiang Wang observe the situation of the 6 diagonal chess positions. Each person was responsible for observing the diagonal chess positions. The ancient divine lord used the 6 chess forms to assist him. The importance of the chess minister was needless to say. The chess minister's vision of the rules allowed him to see 4 leap. In other words, he could see as far as the 8th chess position. The vision of the limit was one more position than the chess master's vision of the rules. Therefore, the 4 chess ministers walked together with Jiang Wang, observing the 4 directions. The remaining 2 chess ministers stood on the left and right sides of the chess master, focusing on observing the situation in front of them. The 8 chess players were divided into 2 teams, with 4 on each side, guarding the chess ministers on the left and right side. The whole team advanced in such a formation. This was definitely not the way to maximize the use of the vision of the rules, but it was relatively safe, because no one could tell what dangers were hidden in the impenetrable fog. If they were too far away, they would not even have a chance to rescue someone when an accident happened. Because the transcendent power of the Swift Fire Division's warriors had been neutralized in the life and death chess, Jiang Wang had to accommodate their speed. The speed of the slowest person in the team was the speed of the whole team. The Swift Fire Division had spent many years on the Nether Totem, so they did not have any experience in life and death chess. Under Jiang Wang's request, every chess player and chess minister had to report the situation of their vision of the rules once every 3 players in the team passed. First position, safe. Second position, safe. Third position, safe. Everyone was ranked according to chess player 1, chess player 2, chess player 1, chess player 2, and chess player 3. This way, if an accident happened, the team could quickly and accurately determine where it happened. The experience of participating in battles in the Qiu Offense Army was very precious. As one of the 9 Qi soldiers, the Qiu Offense Army could basically represent the top army in the modern world. With that kind of experience, it was not too difficult to arrange a small team's battle plan. First position, safe. Second position, 4 players in front of you on the right. There is a team of spear-wielding stone soldiers. There were all kinds of stone soldiers in life and death chess, and they were organized in teams of 5. They were not very strong, but for the tribal warriors who had lost their transcendent power, they could only win in a 2 versus 1 situation. Ignore them. Continue forward, Jiang Wang ordered. When there was a choice, it was necessary to fight with all kinds of stone soldiers. This way, when a battle was unavoidable, they could be confident. However, this was not the most important thing right now. They should avoid battles if they could. When they were in the Tao Academy and carried out missions as a small team, the commander was always Boss Ling He. His commanding style was steady and thorough. He almost never made a mistake, and there were very few moments when he looked outstanding. Now that Jiang Wang was commanding the team himself, he could not help but be affected. He tried his best not to take risks and focused on completing the set goal. He kept moving forward and receiving information. Most of the time, he was silent and only gave orders when necessary. An hour was not a lot of time, so everyone was giving it their all. Xiang Lu, the fourth jump has found a birth point. Chess Minister Xiang Lu's voice was pleasantly surprised. Prepare for battle. There were bound to be obstacles around the birth point. Jiang Wang did not hesitate to move to the right until he reached the fourth jump. The vision of all 7 positions in front of him was opened. P.S. The rules of life and death chess were drawn up by Ben himself, mixed with many factors, so it is rather complicated. Brain damage, hair loss, I tried my best to explain it clearly and make it easy for everyone to understand, so it won't be difficult to read. When I wrote it, I felt that it would be difficult and unrewarding, but I wrote it anyway. It is based on the simplest logic. As a game that can decide the fate of a tribe for 100 years and is named Life and Death, it must consider many aspects and should not be too simple. The current life and death chess might not be enough to bear its responsibilities, but I don't have much time to give it. After all, it has already taken more time than the entire Void continent. I still hope it can be convincing. While I'm at it, please vote. Chapter 497. Because it was a player's field of vision, the fourth jump in the Go image's nomological vision was actually the 8th position on a straight line. It was Jiang Wang, the next position outside the limits of the nomological vision. At this moment, in Jiang Wang's nomological vision, there were 2 groups of stone golem cavalry standing in front of him. Stone armor, stone horses, and stone armor. At the same time that Jiang Wang saw them, they also discovered Jiang Wang and the others. They raised their spears in unison and lined up in 2 groups. Da-da-da-da. The stone horses galloped on the ground. They instantly turned from stillness and charged forward. Qinghua Yuanshan raised his sword and was about to move forward when a figure shot out at a speed that was beyond his reach. Jiang Wang was like a shooting star, clashing head-on with the 2 groups of stone golem cavalry. His speed was much faster. Only 2 stone golem cavalry charged out, and he was already in front of them. He held his sword horizontally and slashed horizontally. Famed scholar's downfall sword. The expected collision sound did not appear. It was like a knife cutting through tofu. There was no resistance. Jiang Wang took a step forward and stepped into the spawn point in front of him. Patter, patter. Behind him, the stone golem cavalry fell to the ground one after another, shattering into pieces of gravel. He defeated 10 with 1 sword. With the experience of fighting side by side in the Wuji catacombs, Qinghua Yuanshan and the others were no longer surprised by his strength. They only rushed to the spawn point, feeling lucky that they had such a powerful backer. The spawn point itself did not look special. It was just that after it was seen, it would appear as a white block on the contract of the king. It was different from the surrounding chess positions. When Qinghua Yuanshan and the others arrived, Jiang Wang had already circled the spawn point, alone, and eliminated all the dangers. Only the broken stones on the ground were left, telling the story of their former existence. However, they could not see what kind of stone golem troop they were. The group squeezed into the spawn point. Jiang Wang designated 2 pawns as guards and ordered everyone to rest where they were. Because of the importance of the rules, he had been keeping track of the time. The night of the life and death game came not long after. At night, everyone's nomological vision was ineffective. Other than the spawn point they were at, they could not see anything else. But on the deed of the monarchy, the white blocks that represented the birth points all lit up. The locations of the birth points appeared randomly and would be disrupted every day. It was impossible to plan the route by remembering the location of the birth point. During the day of the life and death chess game, the location of the birth point that one discovered would be displayed on the deed of the king, but the birth point discovered by others would not be displayed. At night, all the occupied spawn points would be revealed at once. Only the birth point was displayed. The night of the life and death chess was a time for all the participants to review and formulate a plan for the next day. Participants could determine the location of their opponents through the positions of these occupied birth points, combined with what they had seen in the deed of the king during the day. The correct way to advance in the game of life and death should be to control a birth point and use it as a foundation to move forward and search for the next birth point. If they felt that they could not find the next birth point before nightfall, it was very likely that they would have to go back and return to the position of the previous birth point. Those who had the advantage and did not want to go back were determined to explore forward, but were unable to find a new birth point and lost the opportunity to go back. It was not uncommon for them to be eliminated or erased. The choice of advancing or retreating was also a part of the life and death chess game that tested one's decisiveness and wisdom. Jiang Wang silently completed his basic daily practice, then took out the deed of the king and spread it out in front of him. As the leader appointed by the chief, Qinghua Gaoqi, Qinghua Yuanchun studied it beside him. They had entered the life and death chess game for the first time this afternoon. The first group of people to enter the game of life and death had already spent 2 days and 1 night in the game. Now was the second night. Today we have very little time. We only advanced 30 positions. Not bad, Jiang Wang concluded. The fastest on the first day was the Swift Fire Division, which advanced 180 positions. Judging from this speed, Jiang Wang advanced 30 positions in less than an hour, which seemed fast enough. But this was based on the fact that they were the last among all the competitors and did not receive any interference. The Swift Fire Division's speed on the first day was achieved by competing with the other 99 tribal teams. It was much more solid. This showed how strong Jiang Wuxie's trump card was. Jiang Wang estimated that the warriors of the Swift Fire Division had been trained by him to control the transcendent power with the ability of troop formations. But this was also the reason why he was targeted on the second day. He was sent to Lei Zhanxian by tacit agreement. Then Lei Zhanxian personally attacked him and knocked him down from the first echelon. Based on the position during the day, the Red Thunder Division should be at this birth point. Jiang Wang pointed at the position on the deed of the king. It seems that the Red Thunder Division has advanced 312 positions as of today. When we set off from the catacombs, the Red Thunder Division had advanced 370 positions. They are not advancing but falling back. Looking at the deed of the king, Qinghua Yuanchun gloated. I saw it at dusk. The Red Thunder Division has advanced more than 400 positions and is very close to the next birth point. Jiang Wang pointed at another birth point and said, either they were pulled back by someone or they couldn't occupy that birth point and had to retreat. The Red Thunder Division is the first now. It's normal for them to be targeted, Qinghua Yuanchun said. Besides, they will be targeted by more tribes tomorrow. Because today, most people's attention was still on the Swift Fire Division. It was only because the Swift Fire Division was suddenly knocked down that the Red Thunder Division caught up. But I think, Qinghua Yuanchun changed the topic and suggested, we should pay attention to the tribal teams closest to us first. The Red Thunder Division is too far away for us to care about. Jiang Wang looked at him and said seriously, if you don't care about the first place, you can't be the first. Do you think the Red Thunder Division is far away? Unreachable? Then we shouldn't have come here. If we don't fight for the first place, why would we come here? I understand, Qinghua Yuanshan said with his head lowered. He had his own ideas, but he still respected Jiang Wang's command. Jiang Wang only said it once and then let it go. He looked at the contract of the king carefully and analyzed the information. He said, "The Red Thunder Division's lead has shrunk. The positions of the Plague Division, the former Earth Division and the Ironwood Division are ambiguous. They will probably take action tomorrow." So far, he only knew that the 1st Earth Division's chess master was Fang Chong. The chess masters of the Plague Division and the Ironwood Division didn't match up with his memory. He estimated that he would only know who they were after meeting them. Qinghua Yuanshan said, "It seems that the Red Thunder Division will be pulled down. This will give us more time." If Lei Zhanqian was so easy to deal with, it would be a good thing. Jiang Wang didn't comment. He looked at the contract of the king again, and then rolled it up and put it away. "Do you know why Qinghua Gaoqi asked you to come to the life and death chess with me?" he asked. Qinghua Yuanshan thought for a while and said, "It's probably because I'm still willing to risk my life." Jiang Wang shook his head. "He wants you to be his successor. He knows that with me, the Qinghua Division's ranking won't be bad. That's why he gave you this credit so that you have the qualifications to convince the others." Qinghua Yuanshan was stunned. "I never thought about it." Jiang Wang looked at him and said, "Actually, I don't think you're a qualified leader, because you don't know how to unite your comrades." Qinghua Yuanshan didn't say anything. He knew that Jiang Wang was talking about Qinghua Qiming. The night in the life and death chess was very long. Chapter 498. The first night in the game of life and death was finally over. At dawn, Jiang Wang had already set off with his people. The route had already been planned. The birth point would change randomly, but the participants in the game of life and death couldn't change their positions at night. They couldn't get the exact location, but it wasn't hard to determine the approximate range. When Jiang Wang was drawing the route forward, he had consciously set the other tribes as his targets. Excluding the teams that had been eliminated, the High Flame tribe was now the last in the rankings. Jiang Wang's arrangement wasn't to pull people down and compete for the last place. His goal from the beginning was to be the first place, and this wasn't just to encourage people. The reason why he targeted other teams was that in the game of life and death, several echelons had already been formed. When any echelon leaped to the next echelon, the biggest resistance would always come from the competitors, not from the game of life and death itself. All the competitors in this echelon wouldn't allow anyone to easily shake off the other teams. Every echelon was a quagmire, and the competitors trapped in it couldn't get out of the quagmire. Jiang Wang's solution was very simple: if you drag me down, I'll eliminate you. Even if you don't start dragging me down, I'll eliminate you first. He directly showed his superior strength and his attitude of seeking revenge, so as to deter the resistance from the last echelon to the greatest extent. Of course, he wouldn't deliberately take a detour too far. The tribal teams chosen in the plan could be dealt with conveniently on the way forward. After killing a stone general blocking the way, Sure Air quickly moved a few chess positions and found a pile of gravel diagonally. "Protect yourselves, we're going to bump into them," Jiang Wang ordered and led the team to move to the right. The gravel on the chessboard in front of them meant that the opponent tribe had just cleared the obstacles. Because the traces of yesterday's battle had been erased by the game of life and death, the gravel represented the battle could only appear today. Jiang Wang led his people to follow behind them. First, it was easier to move forward with someone opening the way, and second, it was to catch up with the competitors and eliminate them. "Xiang Yi, there's an opponent tribe in the fourth jump ahead." The chess minister who was in the same position as Jiang Wang shouted. As soon as he finished shouting, Jiang Wang and the others had already rushed forward. It just so happened that his eyes met with the Go Master of the competitors' team. The vision of the rules was similar. When the High Fire Division saw their opponents, they were also seen by their opponent. Clearly, they did not fear the High Flame Division. He didn't choose to run away. Instead, he immediately turned around and formed a formation. The battle was about to begin. Jiang Wang leaped up and flew forward alone with his sword in hand. "Wait!" The Go Master on the other side quickly shouted, "Let's move out of the way!" When Jiang Wang flew up, the meaning of the battle had already been lost. This chess master was a smart person. He knew that it was impossible for his side to defeat the Qinghua division, which had transcendent combat strength. Thus, he decisively admitted defeat and retreated. As he spoke, he led his men to the left. "You can either withdraw from the game of life and death immediately, or be killed by me," Jiang Wang said directly. "There is no third choice." The Go Master on the other side said with a bitter expression, "This person from the clear sky, we pose no threat to you, you have 5 breaths to consider. 3, 2. It stopped abruptly when it reached 2. The team in front of him had already disappeared from the game. They were very rational and tactful. They didn't try to challenge Jiang Wang's credibility. On the contract of the king, the blue light spots that represented this team were erased at the same time. Most of the time, the position of the target that was already in the team's field of vision would be shown on the contract of the king. Jiang Wang didn't even ask which water tribe they belonged to. There was no need for that. The chess master named Tu chased after Jiang Wang and said, "They really pose no threat to us." "That's not important," Qinghua Yuanqin said. "What's important is that we have to make an example out of them." Xiang Tu seemed to think that it was a waste of time. "No monkey will disturb us now." Jiang Wang's voice came from the front. "Monkeys are very obedient, but they can also be disobedient. We have to catch up with the first place now. We can't be disturbed, so I need to eliminate the possibility of disobedience in advance. Whether they are obedient or not, they have to be obedient." 2. Diagonally to the 4 players, "You've found the stone prison." The chess master on the right suddenly spoke. At the same time that he found the stone prison, the contract of the king had a new display. There was a red light spot diagonally in front of them. On the straight line where the red light spot was, there were 50 consecutive black chess positions. The red light spot represented a checkpoint in the life and death game. The black chess position represented a no-go zone. In other words, if you saw such a checkpoint in the life and death game, you had to either solve it or go around it. The participants of the life and death game were faced with choices almost all the time. But for Jiang Wang, this checkpoint didn't constitute a choice. He didn't hesitate at all. Without stopping, he led the team directly to the checkpoint. In the huge stone prison, nearly 100 stone wolves were walking back and forth, showing their ferocious faces. There was a stone lock on the stone prison, and a line of words was engraved on the stone door. "Fight in the cage, hundreds of stone wolves, the challenge must be completed within 20 breaths." When they walked to the chess position in front of the stone prison, the stone wolves were all agitated. The eyes of the wolves were like rubies, looking ferocious and violent. It seemed that if it weren't for the stone prison, they would wander around the life and death game and kill everything in sight. Jiang Wang didn't look at them. He opened the stone lock, pushed the door open, and entered. Among the howls of the wolves, Chang Xiangxi let out a long cry. He was like a dragon, and his sword was like thunder. It stopped in a flash. In the collapsing stone prison, Jiang Wang stood with his sword in hand. 20 breaths was too long. The black chess position on the contract of the king disappeared. The obstacle was gone. The soldiers of the Qinghua tribe stepped on the broken stones and walked in. A stone tablet rose in front of Jiang Wang. There were words on the tablet. "Choose one, and all obstacles within 50 positions will be cleared. Choose 2, and anyone within 100 positions will retreat 20 positions." There was a small groove behind each choice. Jiang Wang looked around and picked up a red gem. Obviously, every stone wolf had 2 eyes, but after killing 100 stone wolves, only this red gem was left intact. There was no doubt that it represented the confirmation of the choice. Jiang Wang didn't even think about the second choice. He had prepared for so long before coming to the life and death game, not to seek the position of a crane in a flock of chickens. He wanted to compete for the position of a crane in a flock of cranes. He wanted to compete with the number 1. He inserted the red gem into the groove of choice 1. From then on, the first 50 positions would have a smooth journey. Go on, Jiang Wang said indifferently and continued to walk forward. The soldiers of the Qinghua tribe followed him without hesitation. The 50 positions passed peacefully. Half of the day had passed, and the Qinghua tribe had advanced 180 positions. Jiang Wang opened the contract of the king and used the opportunity to check the positions of the competing teams. He didn't need to use it in the morning. He just needed to follow the plan drawn up last night. By noon, the positions of all the teams had changed a lot and needed to be reconfirmed. At this time, Jiang Wang saw at first glance that the purple light spot representing the Red Thunder tribe was far ahead. Now it had advanced to 413 positions. The black light spot representing the Plague tribe and the green light spot representing the Ironwood tribe, which were very close to the Red Thunder tribe yesterday, had all disappeared. P.S. Recently, many new readers have asked me what other books I have written. I'll report to you here. So far, he had published a long wuxia novel, Rest of Heroism, and a collection of short stories, When I Love You, which was generally sweet and less cruel, were published. These 2 books could be bought all over the internet. Then, I have many short stories, which can be found in my public account with the same name. Why is it so serious? My Jihu column, Human Love, and my Jihu column, 33 Forms of Love, the electronic version with swords drawn. And my Weibo at, What Love is So Silly. Let's not talk about the magazines and public accounts that contain my work. I'll report to you about the script after it's finished. Writing web novels is starting from the beginning. I hope Red Heart Survey can make me proud in the field of web novels. Let's work hard together. Heart. Chapter 499. When Jiang Wang reviewed the game last night, he saw that the Zhifeng tribe, the Tu tribe, and the Ironwood tribe had surrounded the Red Thunder tribe. He knew that these 3 tribes would make a move today. At that time, Qinghua Yuanshan was still gloating, thinking that the Red Thunder tribe would be pulled down or even eliminated. But now, the Zhifeng tribe and the Ironwood tribe had disappeared, and no one knew whether the masters of these 2 tribes were still alive. Jiang Wang searched carefully again, and finally found the yellow light spot representing the Tu tribe in a place far away from the Red Thunder tribe. Fang Chong of the Four Seas Business Alliance was still there. He had only retreated, but not been eliminated. Of course, it was not because he was concerned about Fang Chong, but because Fang Chong's escape could roughly explain one thing, which was that although Lei Zhanqian's strength was strong, it was not to the point where it made people despair. It was not to the point where Fang Chong could not escape. As for the fight between Lei Zhanqian and Jiang Wuxia the day before, Jiang Wuxia's escape didn't mean much, because no matter how hostile and competitive they were, Jiang Wuxia was the prince of Deqi. Lei Zhanqian shouldn't have the guts to kill him. From the various light spots on the contract of the king, there were 63 teams left in the game of life and death. 100 teams set off from the 4 directions of the life and death chess toward the center point. 2.5 days had passed, and more than 1/3 of the teams had been eliminated. The most noteworthy team was the Red Thunder tribe. Last night, the Red Thunder tribe was fixed at 312. Now it was 413. It had advanced by 101 places. At first glance, it wasn't as big as the Qinghua tribe's 180 places. But the Red Thunder tribe's speed was achieved by the Zhifeng tribe, the Two tribe, and the Ironwood tribe. This was very scary. After breaking the encirclement of the three tribes, who would dare to block their way? If it was a flat land, how fast would they be? Would the Qinghua tribe have a chance to catch up? Not enough. Jiang Wang looked at the contract of the king and shook his head as he walked. I need you to move at your maximum speed. He felt a sense of urgency. All the warriors of the Great Fire Division began to run without caring about anything else. They were mainly relying on Jiang Wang for this trip. Their role was in the vision of rules, so they didn't want to be a burden no matter what. In fact, if one were to disregard the consideration of other factors, if the chess master possessed extraordinary strength, he would definitely advance faster on his own. However, the reality was that there were many factors that could not be ignored. The first reason was because of the rules of the life and death chess. To enter the life and death chess, all positions had to be filled. But to leave the life and death chess, one would either die in battle or leave with the entire team. There was no such thing as a few leaving and a few remaining. As for the Go Master moving alone, it was also impossible for the team to slowly chase after him. The final center point required the entire team to be there. Those who arrived first had to wait for those who arrived later. The reason why he chose several old men to accompany Jiang Wang into the life and death chess was because he wanted Jiang Wang to sit back and watch them die. Thus, he had a simple plan. However, this was not the best solution. The reason lay in the second factor. In the life and death chess, relying solely on the chess master's vision was too narrow. It was very likely that he wouldn't be able to discover the birth point and might even brush past it. If he was unlucky, no matter how strong he was, he could only dejectedly leave the life and death chess at night. The third factor was that for opponents of similar strength, there was a huge difference between making a move first and making a move later. The scope of the vision of rules could sometimes determine life and death in an encounter. Jiang Wang might be able to rely on his strength to flatten the teams at the tail end. In the final stage of the competition, when he faced Lei Zhanqian and the others, he couldn't fall behind in terms of the vision of rules. These three factors were the reason why he insisted on bringing the entire team forward. Finally, he glanced at the blue dot representing the Pure Water Division on the contract of the king. Li Fengyao had advanced a total of 387 positions. Jiang Wang put away the contract of the king and ended the opportunity to observe his opponent's positions. The Fire Division advanced rapidly. No matter what obstacles they encountered along the way, Jiang Wang slashed them all with his sword. He didn't slow down at all, nor did he stop to let the team rest. While they were advancing, an indescribable force suddenly descended. Jiang Wang's figure froze, and the scenery on both sides began to move backwards. Jiang Wang didn't say anything, only silently calculating the distance. In the life and death chess, he couldn't refuse the rules of the game. While he was silently counting, he moved back a total of 20 positions. Only then did this move back end. His team was still in the same place. What Jiang Wang was worried about still happened. The Fire Division's excessive speed was noticed by the other teams at the tail end. Therefore, after passing through the checkpoint, some teams chose to delay them and directly move the Fire Division's chess master, Jiang Wang, back 20 positions. Some teams had no ambition to advance at all. They only wanted to rank slightly higher at the tail end. This kind of move back wasn't just a move back in the chess positions. The obstacles that they had encountered and solved before would also reappear. They didn't have to follow the rules of the life and death chess, which stated that everything would only be restored at night. In other words, Jiang Wang had to break through the obstacles of these 20 positions again. He didn't complain, didn't curse, and didn't even feel angry. Jiang Wang just moved forward again. He brandished his sword, slashed with his sword, and strode forward. There was nothing to be angry about. In a competition, this was very normal. He even had a plan to deal with this kind of situation. When the chess master was moved back, the others followed the previous orders and shrank back to defend against possible attacks. Jiang Wang quickly broke through the 20 positions again and rushed back to his original position to meet up with the fire division's soldiers. The other party made a mistake. Dragging a chess player or chess master back 20 positions was better than dragging Jiang Wang back. Because if they did that, Jiang Wang would have to go back and drag the person back. Unless the person who was dragged back committed suicide, the fire division would have to waste more time. However, Jiang Wang didn't intend to forgive them just because of this mistake. Everyone, spread out your vision to the maximum, Jiang Wang immediately ordered when he rushed back to his original position. According to the rules of the stone tablet we encountered before, when they chose to delay us, the other party must be within 100 positions. Find them. The process of finding the Thunder Division's team was not troublesome. The life and death game had been going on for 2.5 days. How could a team of experts be able to fight with the Fire Division at this moment? Compared to Jiang Wang's team, their speed was extremely slow. I see them. Fire Division's Yuan Chen shouted angrily. Bang 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 bang. Jiang Wang directly shot out with a flaming meteor and revealed himself under the team's terrified gazes. He didn't say anything and just swung his sword to kill. Jiang Wang completely understood the team's actions, but that was all. He had already killed the chicken to warn the monkey. If the monkey was still not afraid, then he could only kill the monkey. A place like the life and death game was no different from a battlefield. He couldn't waste too much time on fighting with the teams at the back. He had to establish enough deterrence so that the other teams wouldn't dare to drag down the Fire Division. Only then would they be able to maintain their speed and have the hope of competing for first place. Otherwise, they would have to struggle in the quagmire and watch as the winner of the first echelon emerged. The Fire Division's luck wasn't bad. After killing this team, they quickly found a spawn point. Occupying the spawn point gave them the confidence that they wouldn't be eliminated today. The deed of the king recorded this spawn point, and the team continued to move forward. Jiang Wang didn't think about how to suppress the Red Thunder Division's speed, because no matter what, he couldn't affect the Red Thunder Division for now. He would do what he could and do the best within his ability. He would leave the rest to others. Fire Division, in the Fire Temple. The warrior guarding the stone tablet in front of the chess record reported the progress of the life and death game. Fire Division's Qing Huaheng was silent. Although the team seemed to be progressing smoothly and their speed was astonishing, he couldn't feel happy. Is there still no news from the Wuji catacombs? He asked. The warrior beside him shook his head and said, They haven't opened the door yet. They're probably still fighting. Let them continue to wait. Fire Division's beard trembled slightly. The life and death game was usually the most active period of the catacombs' star beasts. Endless battles were not a rare occurrence, but for some reason, he couldn't get rid of the uneasy feeling in his heart. Chapter 500. In the game of life and death, the forward position was calculated not by how far you had walked, but by how far you were from the center point. At the same time, there were many paths that corresponded to the center point. If Jiang Wang was 300 positions away from the center point, then his forward position was 700. If he walked one position to the right and happened to walk on another path that corresponded to the center point, then his forward position wouldn't change. If the path to the right didn't correspond to the center point in a straight line, then his forward position would go backward, and he would only be left with 699 positions. Because of the complexity of the game of life and death, there were some places that needed to be bypassed. Therefore, it was often a waste of time and energy without advancing much. The relatively strong competitors were basically in the first echelon. At the end, the Qinghua tribe didn't meet any strong opponent. None of the stone soldiers, pass guards, or even the troops of other tribes could stop Jiang Wang. After the second birth point was recorded, the Qinghua tribe started to look for the third one. When night came, the farthest birth point would be the position to advance for the day. But a new problem appeared. The game of life and death consumed a lot of energy. Although the warriors who participated in the game of life and death had their extraordinary power removed, their bodies were still strong. However, in the game of life and death, the same action consumed twice as much energy. Although the warriors of the Qinghua tribe had been observing and running all the time, Jiang Wang had taken care of all the battles by himself. But the sound of panting still came one after another, more and more, louder and louder. After running for a long time, the body couldn't bear the burden. As one of the warriors ran, he fell to the ground and went limp. The pawn next to him quickly helped him up and looked at Jiang Wang weakly. "He's exhausted. He can't run anymore." The warrior who was lying limp on the ground seemed to have completely collapsed. Besides panting, he didn't move at all. The pawn supporting him looked very uncomfortable. Because of the rules in the game of life and death, it was meaningless to let a teammate who couldn't move forward stay and rest. Everyone knew that the best choice was to kill this teammate who couldn't move forward and make him withdraw from the game of life and death in this way. Only by getting rid of the burden could the team move faster. Every warrior participating in the life and death chess knew what they were shouldering. Therefore, they were mentally prepared for the fate of falling behind. However, when faced with that possibility, it was still hard to avoid suffering. "Carry him," Jiang Wang ordered casually. The number of pawns was the largest, but the range of the vision of rules was the smallest. Although it could be seen from all directions, they were usually used as substitutes. It wasn't worth much. It was only when the number of chess players and chess ministers decreased that they needed to step up and explore the field of vision. Let's return to the last spawn point to rest. Jiang Wang made the decision and took the lead to return. Although there was still some time before the sky turned dark. Qinghua Yuanqin felt that Jiang Wang's decision was very wrong, but he was also very glad that Jiang Wang could make such an incorrect decision. To Jiang Wang, they were just passers-by who had formed a temporary team to fight for the fruits of victory. But to him, these were all his comrades who had been with him day and night. If he was the one making the decision, he might have to make a painful choice for the sake of the entire Great Fire Division. Fortunately, the Go-Master was Jiang Wang. He just needed to listen to orders and didn't have to face difficult choices. The warriors of the Great Fire Division all heaved a sigh of relief. They indeed wanted to continue, but their bodies didn't allow it. The go of life and death seemed to constantly remind them of the word choice. However, there was a very real problem that they had to face. These warriors didn't have any supernatural power. If one of them was exhausted, it meant that the rest of them were probably also close to the warning line. Jiang Wang didn't choose to give up on this burden, because he didn't want to give up on his teammates, even if they were temporary. Secondly, he wanted to alleviate this problem. When the team returned to the spawn point to rest, Jiang Wang said, "Now, I'll teach you a breathing regulation technique to help you adjust your breathing and relieve your physical fatigue. This kind of small technique could be refined slightly in a body refining technique." The cultivation system of the Void Continent basically revolved around totemic power and relied too much on it. It wasn't as complicated as it was in the main world. After teaching them once, Jiang Wang let them practice on their own. He didn't want to waste time and started regulating the heaven and earth isolated island. In this atmosphere, the Great Fire Division's second night in the go of life and death finally arrived. Summing up the gains of the day, the Great Fire Division advanced 265 positions. Adding the 30 positions from the previous afternoon, they advanced a total of 295 positions. Judging from all the occupied spawn points shown in the contract of the king, The Great Fire Division had broken away from the tail end of the competing teams and started to compete in the middle. Jiang Wang still paid attention to the Red Thunder Division first. It wasn't difficult to deduce the positions of some teams from these spawn points. For example, the spawn point closest to the inner circle was occupied by the Red Thunder Division team represented by Lei Zhanqian. Who else could it be? The Red Thunder Division's current position had advanced a total of 490 positions. Compared to the time at noon, they had advanced a total of 77 positions. Similarly, because of the delay, the Great Fire Division had advanced a total of 85 positions compared to the time at noon when they checked the contract of the king. The distance between the two sides was still shortening. But the speed difference was not as fast as it was in the morning. Qinghua Yuanchen was very worried about this. He felt that the warriors of the Great Fire Division were slowing down the speed, but he couldn't be so cruel as to suggest Jiang Wang to kill the warriors who were slowing down. On the contrary, Jiang Wang wasn't very worried about this. The speed in the afternoon slowed down mainly because of the other competing teams. After killing the monkeys to warn the monkeys, it should be much better tomorrow. The physical strength of the warriors was also a problem that all teams had to face. What worried him was still the first echelon. The extraterrestrials from the modern world must have enough methods to solve this small problem. Besides, they all came to the Dubhe world earlier than Jiang Wang, so they had more time to prepare. The reason why Jiang Wang relied so much on the star power that he accidentally discovered was that he saw a chance of survival from it. Otherwise, he would naturally be at a disadvantage when it came to the training of these warriors in a head-to-head competition. The Scarlet Thunder Division led by Lei Zhanqian wasn't very fast in the afternoon. Jiang Wang was certain that Li Fengyao, who represented the Pure Water Division, had made a move. Someone as cold and arrogant as Li Fengyao dared to compete with anyone in the world. She definitely wouldn't fear Lei Zhanqian. She had come to the Void Continent to participate in the chess game of life and death. Only the first place was worthy of Li Fengyao's efforts, and if she wanted the first place, she couldn't let the Scarlet Thunder Division continue to advance triumphantly. If Jiang Wang were in Li Fengyao's position, he would do the same. Sometimes, watching from the sidelines meant giving up. The battle between Li Fengyao and Lei Zhanqian was bound to unfold. Perhaps it would happen before the midpoint, or perhaps it would happen tomorrow. For an expert like Li Fengyao, it would be an insult to hope that she wouldn't run into Lei Zhanqian. Jiang Wang only hoped that the battle would last a little longer so that he could catch up in time. The Plague Division, the Ironwood Division, and the Earth Division had teamed up. One of them was an experienced inner palace expert like Feng Chong. If even they couldn't do it, could Li Fengyao do it? Jiang Wang closed his eyes. He was anticipating the answer. A long night passed quickly in the midst of cultivation. The progress after daybreak was smoother than Jiang Wang had imagined. Any team that tried to slow down the speed of Yan Qing's fire division had to be prepared to be eliminated immediately. The teams that were destined to fall behind didn't have that kind of courage. Yan Qing's fire division advanced triumphantly. The only thing that limited their speed was their physical strength. The breathing technique that Jiang Wang had imparted to them last night had contributed greatly. The warriors were clearly in a much better state. From the chess record on the stone tablet outside, one could clearly see that the red dot representing Yan Qing's fire division was advancing at a speed far faster than the other teams. The observers from other tribes couldn't help but drop their jaws in shock. The observers from Yan Qing's fire division were naturally delighted. In the chess game, they had the opportunity to observe all their opponents once a day through the contract of the king, so they could easily discover the speed of each team. However, the people in the first echelon naturally wouldn't pay attention to the pursuers. They only had eyes for each other. To Jiang Wang's surprise, Qi Lei Division and Water Purification Division didn't seem to be fighting. Instead, they advanced by more than 200 places peacefully. Now, one was at 694 place, the other at 617 place. It was very close to the end of the game of life and death. The 1000th place was the center. What is she waiting for? Jiang Wang was pondering this question, but he quickly overturned this thought, because it didn't fit Li Fengyao's character. She dared to compete with the ancient holy kings. How could she admit defeat to a Lei Zhanqian? So, this isn't a sign of peace. This is the result of fighting and delaying each other's progress. In the final stage, they're both accelerating. It's entirely because of the opponent's strong interference that they've only advanced by more than 200 places. Jiang Wang was sure that this guess was correct. With Lei Zhanqian and Li Fengyao's strength and means, it was possible for them to explode with any kind of speed in the final stage. Now, they've advanced by more than 200 places in half a day. It didn't seem to slow down, but it was already slow for the final sprint. And this must be the result of restraining each other. But this result wasn't a good thing for Jiang Wang, who aspired to be first. Just from the perspective of chess, Li Fengyao didn't stop Lei Zhanqian, and Lei Zhanqian also couldn't shake off Li Fengyao. But other than continuing to look forward to Li Fengyao's performance, he had no other way to delay Lei Zhanqian. The distance was still far, and they couldn't touch each other at all. Jiang Wang took one last look at the contract of the king and flew forward. He understood one thing: in this game of life and death, he wasn't the only one who was anxious. Chapter 501. Even though the High Fire Division was ranked 230 after half a day, approaching the top echelon at 520, they were still too far behind. At their current speed, the High Fire Division would have a hard time catching up to the top echelon before they reached the center. Moreover, once Lei Zhanqian broke free from Li Fengyao's control, the outcome would be decided. Jiang Wang had checked Fang Chong and Jiang Wuxie's positions. As far as he knew, they were the only two people who could interfere in the battle between Li Fengyao and Lei Zhanqian and threaten Lei Zhanqian's position as number one. However, Fang Chong was quite a distance away from Li Fengyao, so the possibility of them communicating was very low. Jiang Wuxie, on the other hand, was traveling in the opposite direction. He had been forced to take a detour after being beaten back by Lei Zhanqian. He was indeed fast, but judging from his route, it didn't seem likely that he would come into contact with Li Fengyao. Judging from the situation reflected in the deed of kingship, Lei Zhanqian's situation seemed to have been decided. However, Jiang Wang still believed that things weren't that simple. These people, who had been fighting for the position of star in Seven Stars Valley, were willing to accept their fate after arriving on the Void Continent? That wasn't realistic. No matter how strong Lei Zhanqian was, it wasn't enough to convince everyone. No matter what, Jiang Wang believed that there was still a chance. The game of life and death wasn't over until the final result was out. Jiang Wang could accept defeat, but he wouldn't allow himself to give up. Taking a step back, even if the opportunity did appear, they would need to be present and participate in it to be able to grasp it. Therefore, what else was there to think about other than increasing their speed? Increase their speed with all their might. It was dusk. There were still 2 hours before the High Fire Division's third night in the game of life and death. As if snowflakes were drifting down, a sparkling and translucent arrow pierced through the air, spreading frost everywhere. 12 squads of stone golems froze on the spot and shattered into pieces. General! Someone is approaching from the left. Holding a crimson spear, it should be the Blitzfire Division's chess master. A soldier reminded loudly. Reporting to the general, we've discovered the original Earth chess master at the 4th jump to the right. Although the warriors were shocked, they did not panic. Soon, they split into 2 groups, each facing one direction. At the same time, a chess player and a chess minister were still rapidly scanning their nomological vision, as if they were indifferent to what was about to happen. It showed that he had good combat skills. Li Fengyao put away the frostkill bow and said calmly, "No need to stop them." These warriors quickly dispelled the defensive formation and dispersed, once again focusing their attention on the nomological vision. Li Fengyao's order was overwhelming. In a flash, Jiang Wuxia, who was holding Hong Luan upside down, appeared in front of everyone. As soon as he saw Li Fengyao, a brilliant smile appeared on his slightly feminine but exquisite face. "Elder sister Li, long time no see." Li Fengyao looked at him with a scrutinizing gaze. "It seems that you and Fang Chong already have a plan." At this moment, Fang Chong's voice sounded. "Miss Li, you've trained your soldiers well. You've also trained these natives to obey your orders." He slowly walked over from the right, indicating that he had no hostile intentions. He said self-mockingly, "The Four Seas Commerce Alliance collected some military formations in the early years. I thought that I had some experience, but it's easier said than done. I'm just a laughingstock. I thought that it was because the natives of this world were useless. Now that I see such a military formation, I know that my abilities are limited." Speaking of which, Li Fengyao's training of these warriors was indeed very effective. Fang Chong kept calling them natives, which made many warriors unhappy. However, before Li Fengyao expressed her opinion, no one said anything. A truly powerful army only had one will. Although this team was small, it reflected this point. Fang Chong's overt and covert flattery did not make Li Fengyao's expression soften. She only gestured for the Water Purification Division's warriors to go to the spawn point that they had previously occupied. Then, she said to Fang Chong and Jiang Wuxia, "Tell me about your plan." Fang Chong, who had been born a merchant, had always been tactful. He immediately extended his hand to Jiang Wuxia. "Ninth Prince, please tell us." He knew that Jiang Wuxia was interested in Li Fengyao, so he naturally let him do as he pleased. This kind of flattery was not annoying. At least Jiang Wuxia enjoyed it. He knew that his smile was very attractive, so he smiled purposefully. "We chose this time to come here to surprise Lei Zhanqian. Miss Li is very smart. She should understand our plan when she sees us." Many teams would use the deed of the king early in the morning to observe their opponent. Speaking of which, if one had the analytical ability to determine the opponent's position through the spawn points at night, using the deed of the king's scouting opportunity at noon would maximize the value of this opportunity. And after noon, the further they went, the less valuable it was to observe other teams. Not to mention that there were only 2 hours left before night fell. Perhaps only a fool would use the deed of the king's power to observe at this time. Of course, Lei Zhanqian was not a fool. This also meant that Lei Zhanqian did not know where Jiang Wuxia and Fang Chong were at this time. He did not know that they had met Li Fengyao. Until noon, they kept a considerable distance from Li Fengyao. It was not until dusk that they spared no effort to rush over. Of course, this was to confuse any possible observers. They came to see Li Fengyao at such a dangerous time, undoubtedly showing their sincerity. Because if Li Fengyao had the slightest intention, he could make them stay by force. They would not be able to rush back to the birth point in time, and could only announce their failure in this game of life and death. "You've all lost once," said Li Fengyao. Her tone was very calm. There was neither ridicule nor sarcasm. It was just a normal statement of fact. "I can't deny it." Jiang Wuxia did not become angry. Instead, he was very honest. "For people like me, crossing realms is a normal thing. But I am one realm below someone like Lei Zhanqian. This is not something I can overcome. Maybe even Wang Yiwu can't do it." It was not rare for a god's favored son to cross realms to kill an enemy. But Lei Zhanqian was not a nobody. He was also a god's favored son in the truest sense of the word. The difference in realms was enough to become a chasm. Just like Chung Gongxing, who had opened the heaven and earth gates first, He took credit for Jiang Wang's achievements in the great illusionary land every few days. He often wanted to learn from each other, and beat Jiang Wang until he could not even fight back. It was only when Jiang Wang also reached the soaring dragon level that he overtook Jiang Wang. Unfortunately, at this time, Cheng Gongxing had already said that harmony is the most important thing. Fang Chong looked at Jiang Wuxia with some surprise. He did not expect Jiang Wuxia, who was known for his extreme arrogance, to be able to remain so calm in front of Li Fengyao's merciless question. Moreover, his words implied that he was admitting that his strength was inferior to Wang Yiwu's. He admitted that he could not do it, and his evaluation of Wang Yiwu was that he probably could not do it. From the looks of it, he had wholeheartedly accepted his defeat in the battle with Wang Yiwu. Fang Chong hid his surprise very well. He only shook his head embarrassedly and cupped his hands at Li Fengyao. I am useless. My 2 troops were defeated by Lei Zhanqian. I have embarrassed myself in front of you, Miss Li. Chapter 502. The 2 of them had faced off against Lei Zhanqian, but the result had always been the same. Now, they were facing Li Fengyao's same question. They seemed to be equally honest, but their reactions were completely different. Jiang Wuxia's self-confidence had not changed. He admitted that he was no match for Lei Zhanqian now, but he obviously thought that it was only because of the difference in cultivation level. Fang Chong, on the other hand, was the same as the 4 Seas Business Alliance. He admitted that he was no match for Jiang Wuxia and did not fight for the limelight. The core of the business world was the pursuit of profit. Profits came first and reputation came second. If there was a day when a business wanted to fight for reputation, it would definitely be because reputation could bring them greater profits. However, the reason why Li Fengyao emphasized that all of you have already lost was not to make them admit defeat. He wanted them to admit that they had already lost the right to fight for first place. This was actually the condition that he had set. But Jiang Wuxia and Fang Chong tacitly kept their mouths shut, unwilling to give up the right to fight for first place. At the same time, they emphasized Lei Zhanqian's strength and expressed the need for them to work together. Perhaps because they knew Li Fengyao's cold arrogance, their words were very tactful. Li Fengyao naturally understood what they meant. Jiang Wuxia was very ambitious, and Fang Chong pursued the greatest benefits. It was unrealistic to let these 2 people give up the fight for first place just because of a single loss. Without thinking for too long, Li Fengyao asked directly, "What do you plan to do?" Jiang Wuxia replied again, "The more complicated the plan, the harder it is to execute. Especially when Lei Zhanqian is not stupid. So our plan is very simple. Fang Chong and I will rush back to the survival point we occupied. Tomorrow morning we will meet up with you. The 3 of us will sweep through all obstacles and directly find Lei Zhanqian. We will catch him off guard and kill him on the spot." To Jiang Wuxia, killing Lei Zhanqian was more important than winning the life and death chess championship. As for the revenge of the Lei family and Jiang Wuxi, he naturally did not care. He had always been Jiang Wuxi's competitor. Killing Lei Zhanqian was like cutting off Jiang Wuxi's arm. Li Fengyao had every reason to suspect that the reason why Jiang Wuxia had been defeated on the first day was probably to show that he was weak, so that he could join forces with the strong to kill Lei Zhanqian. In fact, during the battle on the second day, Yi Zichen and the others were all shocked. Lei Zhanqian had slaughtered all the warriors of the Swift Fire Division in one move, and Jiang Wuxia had indeed chosen to retreat instead of fighting. Moreover, in the plan that Fang Chong and Jiang Wuxia had agreed upon, there was only the matter of defeating Lei Zhanqian and eliminating the Red Thunder tribe. There was no agreement to kill Lei Zhanqian. Fang Chong tactfully kept silent about the private goods, in Jiang Wuxia's words. How could Li Fengyao not understand such thoughts? But she only asked, "The 3 of us?" She did not care whether Jiang Wuxie wanted to kill Lei Zhanqian or not. She would help to defeat Lei Zhanqian, but she would not deal the final blow. If Jiang Wuxie could kill him, then she would kill him. If she could not, then she would just watch. The Li family of the Stone Gate was a big family, and had no need to participate in the fight for the throne. Fang Chong replied, "There are still 5 people from the 2 tribe. I will kill them all before dawn tomorrow. Your water tribe as well. With the 3 of us working together, there is no need for these natives to exist. They will only be a burden." "You don't know anything about military formations." Li Fengyao only said this before she turned and left. Fang Chong was stunned. He looked at Jiang Wuxie and said, "Your Highness, what does Miss Li mean?" Jiang Wuxie smiled and raised a finger. "First, don't think about making decisions for her. She would always be the one to decide her own matters, even if it is just the lives of a few natives." Then a second finger. "Second, you really don't know anything about military formations. They may be a burden to you, but not to her. The Li family has been famous for generations. It is easy to let these people play a role." He raised a third finger. "Third, she has agreed to attack Lei Zhanqian tomorrow morning." After saying these 3 points, Jiang Wuxie smiled again and left with her spear. Time was running out. Even if it was him, he had to make the best use of his time to make sure that he could get back to the birth point in time before dark. It was because of this urgency that there was a possibility of a surprise attack without being noticed by Lei Zhanqian. Fang Chong's attitude was very respectful as he watched Jiang Wuxie fly away. Only then did he turn around and soar into the air, flying towards the birth point that the Earth tribe occupied. There was only an almost imperceptible chuckle, which was drowned out by the sound of the wind. "Ha, these people are from noble families." Did Lei Zhanqian think that there was a possibility that these 3 people would join hands? Maybe he did, maybe he did not. But as long as there was such a possibility, no matter how small it was, he should not ignore it. In Fang Chong's view, Lei Zhanqian was now in the lead. At the last stage, he should decisively kill all the Qi Lei tribe warriors and rush to the center point at the fastest speed. This was the best choice. But both he and Jiang Wuxie were very sure that Lei Zhanqian would not do this. Because if he did, it meant that he was afraid. He was afraid that Li Fengyao, Jiang Wuxie, and Fang Chong might join forces. Just because of such a small possibility, he was so scared that he ran away like a wolf. Was that still the same Lei Zhanqian who fought to be the first in everything and was conceited enough to monopolize the world? In Fang Chong's heart, although these people were proud, they had obvious flaws. A gentleman could be bullied, but a proud person could be bullied with pride. Whether it was Li Fengyao, Jiang Wuxie, or Lei Zhanqian, they were essentially the same kind of people. When doing business with them, as long as you smiled, you would not lose money. The night of the game of life and death came again. The deed of the king showed a total of 51 birth points. That was to say, only 51 tribes were still fighting in the game of life and death. Nearly half of the tribes had been eliminated, and some of them were still struggling in the periphery. In the end, they might not even be able to enter the center point. There was no doubt that the tribes at the front were all tribes with star generals. There was a fundamental difference between having transcendent combat power and not having transcendent combat power. After another afternoon of hard work, the Qinghua tribe was now in the 690th place. It was ranked 10th among all the tribes. The Red Thunder tribe had already occupied the 853rd place. It was only a morning away from the finishing point. The Pure Water tribe was in the 782nd place. There was no problem with the positions of the Earth tribe and the Swift Fire tribe. If they had joined forces with Li Fengyao, the positions of the 2 birth points would not have lit up. The positions of the 3 birth points all looked normal. No. Jiang Wang stared at the birth point that should have been occupied by the Pure Water tribe. He had been paying attention to the Pure Water tribe's speed. The pure water tribe under Li Fengyao's control had been advancing at a steady pace. Today's pure water tribe was a little slower than he had expected. However, this point was not very obvious. Such a delay could easily be affected by accident. Then, was it because of an accident? Jiang Wang thought carefully for a while, then suddenly shook his head and laughed. He laughed at himself for thinking too much. What kind of person was Li Fengyao? How could he allow an accident to happen at this time? So the answer was obvious. There would be an opportunity. Could Jiang Wang grasp it? Wait for daybreak. Chapter 503. Including the afternoon of the first day, this was the fourth day since the joyous fire tribe entered the game of life and death. It was also the fifth day since the game of life and death began. The stone tablet attracted the attention of all the tribes on the Void Continent. The game of life and death had entered its final stage. Joyous Fire Tribe's next chief, Joyous Fire Hung, wasn't guarding the fire temple. He wasn't excited about the tribe's progress like the warriors guarding the stone tablet. He was guarding the long tunnel in Wuji Catacombs, in front of that giant metal door. His eyes were bloodshot, but he didn't move. Ever since Jiang Wang left with his men, the door to Wuji Catacombs hadn't been opened again. He knew Joyous Fire's true strength very well. He was definitely stronger than Jiang Wang. He was only one step away from being able to turn his entire body into flames and transform into a totem spirit. Jiang Wang could block Yu Tian with his sword, so Joyous Fire was even more so. With the celebratory fire burning high, ordinary beasts weren't enough to deal with. He personally guarded the catacombs just to prevent any accidents from happening. However, an entire afternoon, 2 days, and 3 nights passed. The door to the catacombs never opened. Their request to open the door didn't receive any response. It seemed the accident had already happened. There had never been such a long battle in history. Even if there had been, how many waves of star beasts had there been? Joyous Fire Hung didn't dare imagine. However, he didn't dare to open the door to the catacombs. If the star beasts were released, he would be a sinner of the Joyous Fire tribe. There was nothing he could do other than wait in torment. In the game of life and death, the sky had just brightened when Fang Chong stepped out of the spawn point. The corpses thrown out of the spawn point last night had already been erased by the game's rules. This made him very satisfied. He wasn't always satisfied. In the Four Seas Business Alliance, the 9 honorary deacons were just useless people who relied on their status. They weren't worth mentioning. Among the 12 first-level deacons, he felt that his abilities were extraordinary. However, the one he trusted the most recently was Fu Miao, who had suffered a huge loss in Yang country and caused the Four Seas Business Alliance to be in a predicament. He even had one of his ears cut off by a brat. He didn't even dare to return the favor. It wasn't a big deal to lose face, but the loss of profits was even greater. He, Fang Chong, had shares in the Four Seas Commerce Alliance. The losses of the Commerce Alliance were his losses. He was actually very dissatisfied. He even felt that Qing Shi was indeed a little dim-sighted. The older he got, the more muddle-headed he became. During this trip to the 7 Stars Tower, Qing Shi had hinted that he could focus on the life-prolonging treasures. How could he possibly agree? For him, the most important thing at this stage was to uncover the secrets of the outer tower. Once he reached the outer tower, would he still have time to search for treasures that could prolong his life? It was even possible for him to break through the lifespan of a mortal and reach the celestial Advent realm. Fortunately, Qing Shi was not completely muddle-headed. After he had clearly rejected him, he did not force him. He only gave him a list of names and asked him to take care of some people in the secret realm of the 7 Stars Pavilion. With Fang Chong's style, of course he would remember these people clearly. For example, one of them was called Jiang Wang. He even found out which inn he was staying in. But whether or not he would take care of her would depend on whether he met her or not. Even if he did, it would depend on Feng Chang's mood. Feng Chang's mood naturally depended on the benefit. In short, he was full of promises but took them as nothing. The benefits of the Four Seas Merchant Alliance might not be completely equal to his, and Qing Shi's benefits would not overlap with his. The trip to the secret realm of the Seven Stars Tower was coming to an end. Soon he would know how this business was done. The team of the Red Thunder tribe advanced triumphantly all the way. Under the leadership of Lei Zhanqian, they were invincible. They had encountered many teams, but none of them were able to stop the Red Thunder tribe. Qi Leiyan looked at the long-haired man in front of her with admiration in her eyes. This man was really the most handsome man she had ever seen in her life. Compared with him, those warriors in the tribe were like fireflies in the sky. They were not at the same level at all. As the daughter of the chief of the Red Thunder tribe, she was qualified to inherit the tribe. She did not lack anything in wealth and glory. But because of this man named Lei Zhanqian, she was full of yearning for the world above the blue sky. She even felt that she had lived her life in vain before she met Lei Zhanqian. She firmly believed that as long as he was here, the Red Thunder tribe would take the first place in this game of life and death without any accident. Just like what Lei Zhanqian said at that time. He was not encouraging people or boosting morale. He was just stating a fact. Then he strode all the way forward to verify this fact. He cut open mountains and cut off rivers. Those competing teams, one by one, one by one, one by two, one by one, one by one, one by one. In the whole game of life and death, the Red Thunder tribe eliminated the most opponent. The other teams tried not to have a head-on confrontation. It was best to move forward with their heads covered. But the Red Thunder tribe relied on defeating opponents to speed up. They were not afraid of any battle. Now they were very close to the center point. The game was set. The next 100 years of the Void Land belonged to the Red Thunder tribe. Qi Leiyan's heart was full of brilliant joy. But at this time, the chess minister warrior shouted, "Zhuasiu found the enemy." Qi Leiyan was surprised to find that the imposing figure in front of her had stopped. Since entering this game of life and death, no matter what the situation was, no matter what he encountered, he had never stopped. But now he stopped. Who did he stop for? Qi Leiyan couldn't help but want to move forward. Because of her identity as a chess player, she couldn't see too far in a straight line. However, a bright red spear fell from the sky, piercing through the stone slabs and landing not far away in front of him. "Little wild cat, you can't go any further." A hand that could be described as delicate pulled out the bright red spear. That person casually shook the spear and then looked at them leisurely. Qi Leiyan looked down at herself. Her tight clothes showed off her curvaceous figure. Her perfectly round and powerful thighs stuck straight to the ground. Her wheat-colored skin was full of wildness. Little wild cat, she shyly stole a glance at Lei Zhanqian. Seeing that he didn't do anything, she flew into a rage. "Little girl, the Star Generals let you go last time and let you run away. You still dare to court death?" She recognized the man in front of her. He looked like a woman, gaudy and not masculine at all. That day when he bumped into them, he also ran away with his tail between his legs. She didn't know what kind of courage he had, but he still dared to come here. "Little girl?" Jiang Wuxie's eyelids twitched. She was so angry that her hair almost exploded. She gnashed her teeth and said, "No one has ever dared to talk to me like this. Remember, if you weren't a beauty, you would be dead by now." Born in the Red Thunder tribe, Qi Leiyan certainly wouldn't be afraid of this level of threat. She even snorted. If it was outside, and the totem power hadn't been dissolved, the Star Generals wouldn't need to take action. She would teach this sissy pretty boy a lesson. She was about to curse, but she was a little worried that she wouldn't be gentle enough in front of Lei Zhanqian. But at this moment she found another person coming from the left. Only then did she realize that Lei Zhanqian's gaze had been focused on the left from the beginning to the end and had never moved away. Who could make Lei Zhanqian pay so much attention to this person? Qi Leiyan looked over nervously. She saw a woman who made her feel threatened in every sense of the word. Chapter 504. This woman's eyebrows were cold, and even the ends of her hair gave off a sense of distance. However, her eyebrows, eyes, lips, ears, every detail could be said to be perfect. Even Qi Leiyan couldn't find any fault with it. Qi Leiyan looked down with her most critical eyes. Her tall, slender figure and lithe figure seemed to have been meticulously tailored by the Creator himself. The other party sensed her attention and swept a cold gaze over. Qi Leiyan actually evaded the cold, proud, and beautiful gaze. A sense of inferiority arose in her heart. How absurd! She was the #1 beauty of the Scarlet Thunder tribe. She might even be able to contend for the title of #1 beauty of the Void Continent after her tribe won this game of life and death. How could she feel inferior in front of another woman? Qi Leiyan glared back furiously, but that woman had long since moved her gaze away. It was as if she didn't care about her at all. Where did this bitch come from? She blurted out furiously. All of a sudden, Qi Leiyan felt that the temperature around her had dropped. She was so focused on glaring at that woman that she didn't notice that the sissy pretty boy had eyes full of regret. Jiang Wuxia's eyes were saying, "You're done for, you're really going to die this time." He was simply regretting the death of a beauty. Li Fengyao didn't look at the rude woman. She only stared at Lei Zhanqian with a frown. "Lei Zhanqian, is this your woman?" she said. "Watch her mouth." "Ha ha ha ha," Lei Zhanqian suddenly laughed loudly. "Fengyao, don't make the atmosphere so tense." He spread his hands. "If you're really jealous, I can let you criticize her. But let's make it clear that you can't do anything to her. She's Lei Zhanqian's woman, after all." "Tsk." Jiang Wuxia couldn't help but click her tongue. "Does he think he's funny?" "I think so, Your Majesty. He's trying to ease the atmosphere and flirt with Miss Li." A sinister voice arrived from the other side. Fang Chong had also walked over to the same chess position. The three sides had formed an encirclement. There was really no need for them to add fuel to the fire. Li Fengyao had already reached out his hand and grabbed the icy and jade-like longbow. He stared coldly at Lei Zhanqian. "It seems like you really want to die." There was no falsehood in her attitude. It was a bone-piercing coldness that could determine life and death. All right. Lei Zhanqian quickly raised his hands and begged for mercy. "If you can quell the anger of thunder, I am willing to apologize to you." Fang Chong said gloomily, "If apologies were useful, there wouldn't be any wars in the world. Let's all apologize to each other, and there will be eternal peace." The fawning expression on Lei Zhanqian's face disappeared. He turned his head and stared coldly at Fang Chong with his deep eyes. "Surnamed Fang, can you understand what kind of status you have? What kind of thing you are? When I talk to Miss Li, is there any room for you to say anything?" "Tisk." Jiang Wuxia chuckled and said, "How is the first deacon of the Four Seas Business Alliance any worse than you, Lei Zhanqian? So what if I said a few words to you? You even want to kill him? Do you really think you are a relative of the royal family? Why don't you ask me if I am willing to acknowledge you as my poor relative? Jiang Wuqi is not even in the royal court yet." Jiang Wuxia was trying to turn the situation into one of life and death, instead of a simple conflict of interests in the arcana realm. She was very direct in her provocation. On the other hand, Fang Chong, who had been humiliated in front of everyone, had the self-awareness to swallow his own saliva. He even replied, "As long as young Master Lei is sensible enough to withdraw from the game, I am willing to be a mute for a while." However, Lei Zhanqian did not seem to understand Jiang Wuxia's trick at all. Or more accurately, he did not care. He even pointed at Fang Chong and said mercilessly, "If you don't want to shut up for a while, then you should be prepared to shut up for the rest of your life." He did not say anything to Jiang Wuxia because he could not kill Jiang Wuxia. In Qi, no matter how presumptuous Jiang Wuxia was, his status was enough to keep him in check. As for Lei Zhanqian, it was meaningless to say such harsh words. If he said he would kill someone, then he would definitely kill someone. If he said he would shut Fang Chong up for the rest of his life, then he had the determination and confidence to do so. Just then, the string of a bowstring suddenly sounded. A ray of frost shot out and turned into the shape of an arrow. Lei Zhanqian turned around abruptly. Lightning wrapped around his hand and he crushed the ice arrow. The ice shards fell to the ground like shooting stars. This arrow was more of a warning than a sneak attack. Li Fengyao looked at him coldly. "I'll also give you a word of advice. If you don't apologize now, I won't let you off. If you don't apologize now, then you don't have to." Everyone knew that Lei Zhanqian was talented and powerful. He was also very flirtatious and was willing to have many wives and concubines. He compared her to his concubines and asked her if she was jealous. Perhaps in Lei Zhanqian's eyes, this was flirtatious and a very ordinary joke. It was even a charming kind of humor. However, to Li Fengyao, this was an insult that she could not tolerate. She only wanted to drive Lei Zhanqian away and fight for the benefits of this Arcana land. But now she really wanted to kill him. A battle was inevitable. This was the consensus of all parties. Now, it was up to Lei Zhanqian to control the battle. To what extent? Would it be a battle of life and death? Li Fengyao had already drawn the line. She was just waiting for a response. Lei Zhanqian's face was dark. He was not afraid of Li Fengyao, nor was he afraid of the three of them working together. He was really interested in Li Fengyao. She was the legitimate daughter of the Li family of Shermen. Even if she was a sow, he would still be interested, not to mention Li Fengyao was so beautiful. But what he did not expect was that his humor was not humorous. His flirtatious character was not good enough for Li Fengyao. It was definitely a stupid choice to fight to the death with Li Fengyao here. "I apologize for my slip of the tongue just now. I mean no disrespect to Miss Li," Lei Zhanqian said, "and my woman, I apologize for her rudeness. She grew up in this world. She really doesn't know who you are, so she spoke without reason. But it's just an apology." As he said, he waved his hand and motioned the warriors of the Chile tribe to step back. This level of battle was not something they could interfere in, and he was alone, facing the enemies in three directions. He said lightly, "If you want to do anything to her, my fist won't agree." Qi Leiyan probably knew at this time that she had made a big mistake in her words. Li Fengyao was a person she could not afford to offend. She hated that she could not use the totem power or mobilize the tribal army in the life and death chest. She gritted her teeth and led her clansmen to retreat silently. At this time, if she could not drag Lei Zhanqian down, she would be very lucky. She still had the awareness of the battle. "You have a good chat. Do we need you to agree?" The last person who wanted Lei Zhanqian to admit defeat and leave was Jiang Wuxia. At this time, although Lei Zhanqian did not mean to admit defeat, he did not want to give him any more time. As a result, Hong Luan's spear was raised and she had already charged forward with her spear. Although he said that he was targeting Qi Leiyan, it seemed that he really wanted to follow Li Fengyao's anger and do something to Qi Leiyan. After all, he always had tender feelings for the fairer sex. The tip of his spear was only aimed at Lei Zhanqian. It was a bright red color, as if it was burning. It was bright red. It was bright red. When it reached the end, there was only a bright red spot left. Like rain hitting spring flowers, the red makeup was gone. There was only one petal left. That petal fell. That petal was red. Chapter 505. Faced with this dazzling red spear, Lei Zhanqian strode forward, his hand gripping the air as if he was holding an invisible blade. He slashed it diagonally. Sizzle lightning leaped and took shape. The long handle was sharp and the lines were sharp. As if leaping out of thin air, the blade of lightning condensed and took shape. One slash to kill the red Luan. The blade touched the tip of the spear. The pale white lightning and the dazzling red spear collided. For a moment, a red tide swept over and lightning flashed everywhere. At the same time, the frost moved. Since Jiang Wuxia had already made her move, Li Fengyao had no reason to wait. The frost kill bow only needed to be pulled and released. She had only shot one arrow, and this arrow was already aimed at the back of Lei Zhanqian's neck. Before the arrow pierced through, Lei Zhanqian's body was covered in frost, freezing his movements and slowing his reactions. This cold feeling came faster than the arrow itself. Crack! There was a cracking sound. It was like the sound of ice breaking. Then, endless lightning rose from Lei Zhanqian's body and exploded in all directions. These lightning bolts seemed to have a spirit of their own. They were like thin whips, lashing out one after another at the frost arrow, shattering it into pieces. And in this process, Lei Zhanqian did not even turn around. "You're all coming to kill me. What do I have to fear?" He gripped the air with his right hand and slashed again. Before the first lightning blade disappeared, another blade came slashing at him. Jiang Wuxia gently retracted her spear, and the red Luan spear quickly broke away from the first lightning blade. With a skillful flick of her hand, she swung the spear and hit the second lightning blade. With this collision, the lightning blade paused for a moment. However, the red Luan spear shook again, and the spear head swung back, shattering the first lightning blade on the spot. Then, using the force of this blow, she swung the spear back again, directly sending the second lightning blade into the air. This set of leveraging force was exquisite. She treated Lei Zhanqian's attack as if it was a game. It was clear how exquisite her spear technique was. However, Lei Zhanqian was indeed just playing. After he slashed out with his saber, he did not hold back at all. Instead, he turned his body and lashed out like a whip. The lightning whip appeared like a long snake and lashed at Fang Chong, who was waiting for an opportunity. "You too." He didn't even put Jiang Wuxia and the others in his eyes. He wanted to fight all three of them at once. Fang Chong, who had been waiting for an opportunity, had no choice but to intervene in the battle. He put two fingers together and took out a chi knife coin that was shrouded in purple gas. It was as if he was holding a small knife, and he casually slashed it down. "I'll borrow your money. Money and goods are done." The knife coin had already dissipated in the process of being drawn. The fierce lightning whip was split into two on the spot. Lei Zhanqian turned around and slashed out with his saber. He fought with Jiang Wuxia for a brief moment before retreating. Lightning flashed, but he had already appeared in front of Fang Chong. He held a hammer with both hands and smashed it down on Fang Chong's head. "Do you think you can afford my goods?" At first, the hammer was like a ball of lightning, but when it landed, it became a net of lightning. When it landed, it was like a cage of lightning, trapping Fang Chong within. Fang Chong cursed in his heart. "What kind of dog is this? The Lei family is Tianjiao. Are you the only one who dares to attack me?" Even though he was smooth and slick in dealing with people, he was used to being able to endure and endure. He was still disgusted by Lei Zhanqian's obvious differential treatment. Jiang Wuxia was the first to attack, followed by Li Fengyao. He, Fang Chong, had already kept a low profile. Lei Zhanqian dealt with the first two casually, then turned to his side and killed him. Since when did the name of the Four Seas Business Alliance become so useless? He was furious, but his actions did not slow down. He formed a huge phantom of a gold ingot and threw it at the lightning cage like a nouveau riche throwing money at it. "Wealth is omnipotent. Please let me pass." The gold ingot disappeared, and a hole appeared in the lightning cage. Fang Chong rolled nimbly and crawled out of the hole. The hole closed as soon as it opened. However, Lei Zhanqian's hammer landed on empty air. He immediately parted his hands and tore the lightning cage apart. The lightning flickered and flowed back into his hands and body. "Do you think the power I saw last time is all I have?" His body flashed, and he brushed past Jiang Wuxie's attack. He turned around and threw a punch, smashing down an arrow that had forcefully knocked away the surrounding lightning. Li Fengyao's arrow. Such a precise arrow had appeared just as he was about to dodge. Lei Zhanqian responded with a punch. The arrow shattered, and the lightning around his fist was also extinguished. His fist was dripping blood. This was the first time he was injured since the start of the battle. However, he was arrogant. He took a big step forward and punched Fang Chong with his bleeding fist again. "I spared your life because I wanted to see what other trump cards the Four Seas Business Alliance had. I didn't expect you to only have this trick up your sleeve. The so-called first-class deacon is nothing more than this. You disappoint me." His fist was dripping blood, but every drop of blood was exploding with lightning. Where is the heroic old alliance Master Qing now? Fang Chong was wrong about one thing. Lei Zhanqian wanted to deal with him first, not because his status was inferior to Li Fengyao and Jiang Wuxie, but because Lei Zhanqian judged that Fang Chong's strength was the weakest of the three. Even though he was in the inner mansion realm, and Jiang Wuxie was only in the reaching heaven state. Of course, it was best to be weak first and then strong later. This was the simplest tactic. Lei Zhanqian had already killed him. Every drop of blood exploded, and the blood-red lightning drowned Fang Chong in an instant. It had to be said. He had thrown away his fake humor to please the beauty and showed his aggressive nature. Lei Zhanqian was now worthy of Li Fengyao's attention. However, it might not be a good thing for Li Fengyao to think highly of him now. The stronger the opponent, the more she wanted to defeat him. Only then would she live up to her name of Li Fengyao. Her snow-white fingers knocked the bowstring and pulled back. The bowstring moved, but it didn't seem to move. But Lei Zhanqian already felt a strong sense of danger coming from his heart. The heart was the most important of the 5 internal organs. It was the source of life. To some extent, a cultivator could replace the heart with the reaching heaven palace, but it was only temporary. Even a 3-year-old child knew the importance of the heart. Li Fengyao's arrow. With a thought, the arrow had already moved. Using the heart to prove the heart was the Frost Heart arrow. The Frost Heart arrow was the unique archery technique of the Li family of Shermen. Li Fengyao had completed her own archery technique, the Frost Heart arrow, on the basis of it. When one was happy, one's heart would be happy. When one was thinking, one's heart would be conflicted. When one was sad, one's heart would really hurt. The Frost Heart arrow moved while the blood-red lightning was still engulfing Fang Chong. Lei Zhanqian had just realized the danger, and his mind was already starting to slow down. Li Fengyao's real attack was the real killing move. One arrow was going to decide the outcome of the battle. That wasn't all, because there was still Jiang Wuxie. When Lei Zhanqian attacked, it was also when his defense was at its weakest. So Li Fengyao chose this moment to decide the outcome with one arrow. And Jiang Wuxie, with the same keen senses, also found this opportunity. Lei Zhanqian felt the deterrence of the Frost Heart arrow first, but Jiang Wuxie's attack came before this arrow. If one were to compare the mind to a net, then in Lei Zhanqian's mind net that was beginning to slow down, there was a bright color that appeared extremely powerful. In this horrifying sluggishness, he actually felt the red. Chapter 506. The most powerful technique in De Qi's royal family was known as the Supreme Crepe Myrtle Middle Sky Classic. It was also one of the most powerful techniques in the modern world. There were 24 Supreme Crepe Myrtle Middle Sky Classic, which was all-encompassing. The 2 most powerful techniques were the heavenly scripture and the earthly latitude. The scripture was vertical. The earthly latitude was horizontal. The heavenly scripture and earthly latitude were the most natural and irrefutable principles in the world. The heavenly scripture and the earthly latitude. Horizontal and vertical, planning everything, governing the world with the laws of heaven and earth. In the history of De Qi's Jiang family, only the crown prince could cultivate the heavenly scripture and earthly latitude. But today there were exceptions, and there were 3 exceptions this time. The 3rd Princess Jiang Wuyo, the 9th Prince Jiang Wuqi, and the 11th Prince Jiang Wuqi. They were all seen as strong contenders for the throne. However, Jiang Wuyo and Jiang Wuqi were both in the inner house of remarkable powers. Although the current crown prince Jiang Wuhua had not obtained any remarkable powers, he was firmly in the outer house of remarkable powers and had a profound cultivation base. How could Jiang Wuxia, who was only in the soaring dragon realm, be on the same level as them? How could he be the master of the heart-nourishing palace? Perhaps this spear was the answer. Before this, Lei Zhanqian had brushed past Jiang Wuxia at an astonishing speed and then met Li Fengyao's arrow with his fist. Then, he turned and avoided Jiang Wuxia again, wanting to kill Li Fengyao on the spot. Li Fengyao seized the opportunity and forced the situation to come to an end with a frosty heart arrow. Jiang Wuxia, who had been brushed past by Lei Zhanqian, seemed unable to keep up with his speed and was always in vain. But he casually turned his spear around. His movements looked so clear and unhurried. He even only turned half his head, only the side of his face facing Lei Zhanqian. The side of his face was clearly feminine, but with a suffocating sense of sharpness. These 2 seemingly contradictory words were unified in the bright red color. He did not turn around. The spear was back. The red luan was a bright red spear. This spear was extremely gorgeous. From the red tassel to the end of the spear, every detail was noble. However, when the spear was pulled out, the spectators could only see the tip of the spear. The extreme red color condensed into a single point. This red dot stunned the world, suppressing the 100 colors and defining the heaven and earth. As soon as it appeared, it was dazzling. Its stab was the rule. If the emperor wants the subject to die, the subject has no choice but to die. Of course, there was no doubt about it. Jiang Wuxia's red luan spear was the strongest weapon in the world. Even the warriors of the Red Thunder tribe, who could only watch from the beginning to the end, felt that Lei Zhanqian would definitely die when they saw this spear. Qi Leiyin's strength was extraordinary. Even though her extraordinary powers were restricted, her vision was still there, and she was full of confidence in Lei Zhanqian. But when she saw this spear, her beautiful face turned pale. This was a spear strike that was justified by the heavens and the earth. It was a spear strike that defined the rules. With this spear strike alone, Jiang Wuxia's understanding of the heavenly canon and earthly latitude of the supreme Ziwei celestial canon was not inferior to any of the princes and princesses of De Qi. He already had the bearing of a king. Frostheart arrow and Hongluan's spear. They did not rehearse, but they had such tacit understanding, instantly forcing Lei Zhanqian to a dead end. And after Fang Chong was defeated once, he still dared to come knocking. How could he be weak? Li Fengyao and Jiang Wuxia's attacks had just started, and Lei Zhanqian's killing aura was slightly affected. Fang Chong had already seen an opportunity. He took out a knife coin from his chest and pressed it with one finger towards Lei Zhanqian. Different from the knife coin he used to use before, this knife coin was condensed from Tao energy and manifested from spells. It was dense with purple energy and disappeared after being used. As for this one, it was a genuine knife coin. It was also one of the most widely circulated knife coins that the Four Seas Trade Alliance had collected since its establishment. The knife coin was pushed forward by Fang Chong's fingertip. It was just a knife coin, as light as a feather, but he seemed to use all his strength, and the 3 inner palaces in his body rumbled as they activated. This was the Shang clan's technique. A single coin stumps heroes. A single coin was insignificant, but when it was really needed, it was extremely little. It brought with it human aura and dust. Using this aura, dust, and turbid energy to restrict Lei Zhanqian to this point, to stump this hero. To make it so that Lei Zhanqian couldn't move an inch, to let him die. Only at this moment did Fang Chong show his strength as the first deacon of the Four Seas Trade Alliance, an expert of the Three Palaces. The three top experts in this life and death game worked together, and their combined attack was about to crush Lei Zhanqian. At such an intense moment, lightning suddenly shone brightly. Lei Zhanqian himself didn't move, but the lightning that exploded out from within quickly gathered in front of him. Because it was too fast, too intense, the lightning crackled endlessly. Finally, in a moment of silence, all the dazzling lightning gathered together. Hence, the Frostheart arrow, the Red Luan's attack, and the money that stumped the hero all stopped momentarily. In front of Lei Zhanqian, there was a seal formed by lightning floating. Below it was the land of the four directions, above it was the shape of lightning. Domineering, majestic. When one saw it, one would have the urge to bow down and worship it. This was the ability that Lei Zhanqian was famous for, lightning seal. This ability was known as a seal seals heaven and earth. I am the Lord of Lightning. The Lei family's highest technique was the 9 Heaven Lightning Evolution Technique. It was said that when one cultivated it to the end, one could use lightning to replace celestial phenomena, and use lightning techniques to simulate all techniques. However, even the Lei family ancestor who created this technique didn't cultivate it to such a level. It was said that to reach such a high level, the prerequisite was to grasp the lightning seal ability. This was also why Lei Zhanqian was the undisputed successor of the Lei family. The Lei family was the maternal family of the 11th prince, Jiang Wuqi. However, Jiang Wuqi couldn't control all of the Lei family's resources. The Lei family's resources were first controlled by Lei Zhanqian. Under Lei Zhanqian's control, they supported Jiang Wuqi. His relationship with Jiang Wuqi wasn't so much that of a ruler and servant, but more like cooperation. Jiang Wuqi also only called him cousin, regardless of his official status, to show respect. Lei Zhanqian himself was at the level of 2 prefectures, one less than Fang Chong. However, because of this lightning seal, he was many times stronger than Fang Chong. The moment the lightning seal appeared, Lei Zhanqian directly punched the sky. The sky of the life and death game was originally blue, no different from the outside world. Only the sky was hanging high. However, when Lei Zhanqian punched out, a large area above the blue sky was instantly filled with sparks of lightning that resembled stars. For a moment, it was hard to tell whether it was lightning or starlight. Li Fengyao's Frostheart arrow was clearly shot, but Lei Zhanqian didn't move at all. Only a few lightning stars fell from the sky. When Jiang Wuxie's attack with the Red Luan ended, it also only caused a few lightning stars to streak across the sky. Fang Chong wanted to stump the hero with a single coin. Lei Zhanqian only cared about moving forward. Only the lightning stars in the sky were fixed in place. This punch contained the killing intent of the heavens, and the stars moved. The 3 attacks had been neutralized, but there were still hundreds and thousands of lightning stars. Under the illumination of hundreds and thousands of lightning stars, Lei Zhanqian punched the ground again. The chessboard of life and death was originally filled with fog that obscured one's vision. However, the surging lightning suddenly revealed a specific light in the fog of laws. The water of the surging lightning suddenly flashed, and the lightning was like a lake and a sea. The sea of lightning split, and the lightning forms of dragons and snakes leaped out to bite everyone. When the earth emits killing intent, dragons and snakes rise. In the 7 Stars Valley, Lei Zhanqian had already used this killing technique. However, without the lightning seal, the difference in power was like heaven and earth. When this punch landed, Li Fengyao, Jiang Wuxie, and Fang Chong were all surrounded by lightning. In the explosion of lightning, Lei Zhanqian was like a god or a demon. One punch to break the enemy's siege, one punch to break the enemy's momentum. He raised his fist and punched a third time. When a man emits killing intent, heaven and earth are turned upside down. Chapter 507. The Nine Heavens Thunder Amplification Technique used thunder techniques to create the killing intent of heaven and earth, using thunder punishment to replace heavenly punishment, thunder punishment to replace earthly punishment, and thunder punishment to replace human punishment. Its concept was lofty and its power was limitless. Lei Zhanqian never thought that Li Fengyao, Jiang Wuxie, and Fang Chong could do anything to him if they joined forces. He always had the strength and confidence to take on 3 people at once. Therefore, at the last moment of the life and death game, he was still calm. He did not slow down for anyone, nor did he rush to die for anyone. If these people did not come, he would easily take first place. Just like in any competition since he was young, he would take first place. If these people came, he would use his fists to tell them, they should not have come. So what if the managers of the Merchant Alliance, the legitimate daughters of famous families, and the powerful princes all came to compete? He, Lei Zhanqian, wanted to be first. He had to be first. Lei Zhanqian used the Thunder Seal technique and punched 3 times in a row. The first punch moved the stars, the second punch turned the earth upside down, and the third punch turned heaven and earth upside down. He used thunder techniques to create all the killing intent of heaven and earth. When heaven and earth were turned upside down, he punched. Thousands of lightning stars fell from the sky. On the ground, the water of lightning surged like a river. Lightning, lightning, lightning. There were silver snakes of lightning everywhere. For a moment, it was as if heaven and earth were turning upside down. Everything was annihilated. It was as if the end of the world had come. Fang Chong was facing death. He was lucky to survive by using the money to buy his life. The money to buy one's life was the difference between the Four Seas Business Alliance and the Jubao merchants. However, each person only had one. After using it, it was useless. Fang Chong had basically lost his life here. After so many years in the business world, he had never used the money to buy his life. However, in this siege that should have been a sure win, it was used up cleanly. Jiang Wuxie's red phoenix spear drew the line between heaven and earth. However, due to the difference in strength, he could only barely maintain a defensive stance. The surging and roaring lightning was not willing to abide by his rules. Li Fengyao was as proud as a goddess, but she couldn't help but be flustered. The frostkill bow vibrated continuously, and the bowstring was plucked like a string of a zither. The arrows flew like lightning, and only after hitting the nodes of the lightning tide did she manage to protect herself. However, the water purification division under her command had been trained by her with the unique troop formation technique of the Li family of sure men. They were hiding outside the 10 chess positions, ready to be used as a surprise attack. He had already died in a single exchange. Lei Zhanqian brandished his final punch, intending to use this punch to overturn the heavens and earth. As for Jiang Wang, at this moment, he arrived. He led the Qinghua tribe's warriors and rushed forward, killing all who stood in their way. After moving through hundreds of chess positions, he finally made it to the final battle. Before they even got close to the battlefield, the lightning that exploded in the fog of laws told them how intense the battle was. Jiang Wang decisively ordered the warriors of Qinghua tribe to stay where they were and went to the battlefield alone. As the Go Master, the rules allowed him to meet 7 players. Each chess position was 60 feet long. Looking forward, he could see as far as 112 feet. With himself as the center, he could see as far as 224 feet. In terms of battle, the vision of the rules was actually enough. However, at this moment, Jiang Wang's vision was filled with lightning. lightning that blotted out the sky and overturned everything. In the lightning, he vaguely saw a red light flashing, and countless frost lights dancing. He walked forward and stepped into the lightning. He saw Lei Zhanqian, and Lei Zhanqian also saw him. Lei Zhanqian was stunned. He didn't expect that among the people who participated in the Seven Stars Mystery Realm together with Li Fengyao, Jiang Wuxie, and Fang Chong, there would be someone else who dared to chase after him. Moreover, this person wasn't even in the Big Dipper star position. He had successfully come out of the other mystery realms and then came to the Big Dipper world to pick up scraps? Should he kill him first? It seemed like he was making a mountain out of a molehill. At this moment, the three opponents were struggling under the fist force. Which one of them wasn't more important than him? Moreover, a mere soaring dragon realm cultivator might not even be able to withstand the aftermath. Could it be that everyone was Jiang Wuxie and Wang Yiwu? Jiang Wang's sudden accident triggered many thoughts in Lei Zhanqian's mind in an instant. However, this wasn't because of Jiang Wang, but because of the accident itself. Jiang Wang had defeated Jiang Wuqi's subordinate, Zhang Yong. This wasn't something that hadn't been reported to him before. However, defeating Zhang Yong wasn't a big deal. He had never remembered who Jiang Wang was. Lei Zhanqian only glanced at Jiang Wang. It was like suddenly glancing at an ant while walking. Other than feeling strange, he didn't feel anything. Jiang Wang only glanced at Lei Zhanqian before he drew his sword. Extremely decisive, extremely straightforward, and extremely fast, he drew his sword. He knew who his opponent was. From the current situation of Li Fengyao and the others, it wasn't difficult to see how strong his opponent was. However, his determination to fight for first place had never wavered. The moment he drew his sword, it was a sign of respect for Lei Zhanqian's strength. There was no need to think, no need to deliberate. He could only go all out. Chang Xiangxi sighed emotionally. The sword went straight. It was a combination of old age and bravery. The sun rose and the sun set. The old general need not return in his old age. At the same time, the fire totem on his back became boiling hot. An endless stream of star power was added to the sword technique. Somewhere in the dim heaven that the world couldn't see and Jiang Wang couldn't detect, a pair of eyes suddenly opened. At this moment, looking up at the sky above the life and death chessboard, people could see stars all over the sky. It wasn't the thousands of stars that appeared when Lei Zhanqian used stellar transposition killing technique. Instead, it was an almost endless sky of stars. In the legend of the Void Continent, the stars all over the sky fell into the dim heaven, smashing through the Void Continent and forming the catacombs. However, at this moment, it seemed that the legend had returned and the stars had risen again. In the Wuji catacombs, how many star beasts had Jiang Wang killed, and how much star power had he gathered? Even he himself couldn't keep count. The catacombs warriors only knew that Jiang Wang fought wave after wave of beast tide in the catacombs. He killed the most in every wave and charged at the forefront. He didn't sleep day and night, absorbing countless stars. Everything was released at this moment. Almost endless star power and endless starlight poured into Jiang Wang's sword. Billions of starlight added to it. The first technique of the human path sword technique, Old General's old age sword. The lightning of the sky cracked, and the lightning of the earth rolled back. The endless starlight superimposed and turned into the sunset that was Jiang Wang's sword tip. Chang Xiangxi swept past. The world of thunder and lightning that turned heaven and earth upside down was penetrated. It even easily broke through the thunder and lightning that surrounded Lei Zhanqian. In his first look of shock, it touched the thunder seal that manifested from the supernatural power. The shock in Lei Zhanqian's eyes clearly said, "How is this possible? This is not the power you should have. This is not the power a soaring dragon realm cultivator should have." Then, the shock in his eyes froze. Lei Shi and Lei Zhanqian himself disappeared on the spot. It wasn't Jiang Wang who killed him with one sword strike. It was him who exited the Dubhe world in advance, just like the first time he entered the Dubhe world in advance. This method of entering or exiting the Seven Stars Tower's arcane realm in advance was, of course, precious. It was something that the Lei family had to pay a high price to achieve. However, this also announced Lei Zhanqian's failure in this trip. He entered the Dubhe world in advance, and of course, he also obtained enough benefits from the Red Thunder tribe. However, to him, not getting first place was a failure. Now that he was played in a game of life and death, there was no doubt that it was a crushing defeat. The starlight that filled the sky dissipated, and the endless thunder and lightning also disappeared silently. The sound of Jiang Wang sheathing his sword was like the sound of a bell. It woke everyone up from the unbelievable illusion, so everything was so real. So everything was real. This handsome but determined young man rushed over and defeated Lei Zhanqian, who was like a god just now, with just one sword strike. Chapter 508. What a resplendent and dazzling sword strike! It was the time of the battle for supremacy on the battlefield. The old general was past his prime. His hair was white, but he was charging alone. Qi Leiyin's eyes were wet for a moment. But she didn't know whether the tears were for Lei Zhanqian and the failure of the Red Thunder tribe, or because she was moved by the sword and surrendered to it. Li Fengyao naturally saw Jiang Wang. She had noticed Jiang Wang when Jiang Wang was charging over. She wanted to stop Jiang Wang from coming over to die. The dense frost that Jiang Wang saw before he attacked was Li Fengyao's effort. But then she saw that Jiang Wang had already drawn his sword. And then Lei Zhanqian fled. Even though she had always admired Jiang Wang, even though Su Xiangqian and Li Longchuan had repeatedly praised Jiang Wang and said he was extraordinarily talented. At this moment, seeing Jiang Wang draw his sword and defeat the enemy in one strike in the chess game of life and death was still beyond her imagination. She was momentarily dazed. In the dissipating lightning and starlight, Jiang Wang felt a great sense of loss. The sword strike supported by the billions of starlight brought him into a world that he had never seen before. It was a vast and boundless world. So his sword could be so powerful. The accumulation of pure power could actually break through the limits of Tao. Even with Li Fengyao, Jiang Wuxie and Fang Chong holding him back, the power of his sword was still unquestionable. When that power faded, he suddenly had the illusion that he was so weak. However, while Li Fengyao was surprised, Jiang Wuxie and Fang Chong were bewildered, and the warriors of the Red Thunder tribe were terrified. Jiang Wang knew his own situation. This sword could not be replicated. The power of this sword was accumulated from the endless battles in the Wuji catacombs. It used an extremely large amount of external force. It was definitely not conventional and very difficult to replicate, because when he returned to the present world, it was impossible for him to come to the floating continent world and guard the Wuji catacombs. Even if he wanted to come, it would be difficult to find a way. Even if the Seven-Star Pavilion's secret realms opened in the future, they might not be connected to the floating continent. After all, it was only one of the countless worlds illuminated by the Dubhe star. However, Jiang Wang rested his sword on his waist, looking proud, high-spirited, and disdainful. He looked at the members of the Red Thunder tribe, including Jiang Wuxie and Fang Chong, as if he was looking at ants. I think the winner of this life and death secret realm should be decided without a doubt. His tone was filled with arrogance, and his gaze swept over Jiang Wuxie and Fang Chong. Only when his gaze landed on Li Fengyao did he restrain himself slightly. Sister Fengyao, I'll take first place and you take second place. How about it? He didn't even ask for Jiang Wuxie's and Fang Chong's opinions. It was as if he didn't care what they thought. Who was Li Fengyao? Jiang Wang rarely had such an arrogant display. She guessed that this brat was bluffing. Although he didn't know how he managed to unleash that sword strike, he didn't think that he would be able to unleash a second strike in a short period of time. However, she was also very clear-headed. Just now, although she had not used her trump card and magic power, her magic power was more beneficial for cultivation. Her battle strength didn't increase as much as Lei Shi's. Under Lei Zhanqian's full power, it was indeed a bit difficult for her to deal with him. If Jiang Wang hadn't suddenly appeared, she might have suffered a big loss. She had to accept this favor. Of course, Li Fengyao said lightly, with your strength, you should be the first. If you hadn't defeated Lei Zhanqian, I'm afraid it would be difficult for me to take second place. She said it very calmly, so it seemed that it was natural. For Jiang Wuxie and Fang Chong, they didn't know where Jiang Wang's strength came from. They could only judge from Li Fengyao's attitude that Jiang Wang might be a guy who had been hiding his strength and was used to pretending to be weak. Jiang Wuxie even suddenly realized why Li Fengyao was with this guy all the way. It turned out that he was hiding his strength. Of course, it was impossible for them, especially Jiang Wuxie, to admit defeat directly. Fortunately, Jiang Wang didn't intend to let them express their opinions. They would be arrogant to the end. Qinhua Yuanchen. As soon as Li Fengyao spoke, he directly activated his vital essence and shouted as if there was no one else around, "Take the soldiers and go directly to the center." His voice traveled several miles. Not far away, Qinhua Yuanchen and the others, who were waiting for the result, were extremely excited when they heard this. Although they had been running all the way and risked their lives to catch up with the battle between Qi Lei, Qing Shui, and the other teams, and had almost exhausted themselves, at this moment they were suddenly filled with endless energy. A group of soldiers who had almost no formation to speak of ran past them with just a burst of energy. Compared to the soldiers from the Qing Shui sect, who had been destroyed by Lei Zhanqian, their military discipline was completely different. However, as long as he thought of Jiang Wang's sword, Fang Chong didn't dare to have any objections. "Young friend Jiang." He even smiled kindly. "Before coming to the Seven Stars Tower, the old leader repeatedly told me that you are an old friend of the Four Seas Business Alliance, and that I can ask for your help if I have any difficulties. However, I am a thin-skinned person and didn't have the nerve to ask you when we were in the Seven Stars Valley." Qing Shi clearly wanted him to take care of Jiang Wang and ask for his help if Jiang Wang had any difficulties. Of course, it was just a polite sentence. Since he was the one who said it, he naturally had to say it. Jiang Wang smiled with a slightly reserved tone. "Leader Qing thinks too highly of me. The Four Seas Business Alliance is a big business. How can I help you, Deacon Fang?" At this moment, this slightly cold reserve was also to continue the arrogant setting from before. To be honest, when the leader said that you are a young hero that is hard to find in the world, I didn't quite believe it and thought that he was exaggerating. Fang Chong appeared to be a little embarrassed but also very honest. "Who knew that the old leader would underestimate you after meeting you today? You flatter me." Jiang Wang continued to be reserved and cold. Fang Chong didn't seem to feel the distance at all. He continued to smile and said, "I noticed that you came to the Dubhe world later. Have you learned anything from chatting with our old leader? As deacons, we don't have much to do with our own matters, but we are always thinking about the mission that the leader gave us." "Not really." For Jiang Wang, acting was really tiring. He turned to Li Fengyao and said, "Sister Fengyao, I'll go first." Li Fengyao nodded slightly. This person was really cold and aloof. Jiang Wang had already gotten used to traveling together all the way to the city. He turned around with his sword in hand and strode toward the central point. The so-called central point was an area that emitted a milky white light. Standing outside, one couldn't see inside clearly. Although it corresponded to 100 starting points, there was only one entrance. It was very difficult to judge by directions like north, south, east, and west because there was no concept of direction. If you found it, you would be there. If you arrived, you could enter. Qinghua Yuanshan waited at the entrance with great enthusiasm. All of the Qinghua tribe's warriors were watching Jiang Wang striding over. Their eyes were full of reverence. This distinguished guest, a star general that descended from the blue sky, helped them guard the catacombs and helped them obtain first place in the life and death chess game. The Qinghua tribe will forever be engraved in this history, Qinghua Yuanshan said sincerely with one hand on his heart. If you will remember me, then I hope you won't forget Qinghua Qiming, Jiang Wang said. The mutated fire totem on his back was personally inscribed by Qinghua Qiming. It was engraved under the white bone lotus flower, perfectly combining the two. It was also Qinghua Qiming who personally guided the totem's power to complete the first totem. This was also the reason why Jiang Wang could defeat Lei Zhanqian in the life and death chess game. Chapter 509. Just as Jiang Wang was speaking, the deed of the monarchy, hidden in his bosom, suddenly flew out. A fiery red light circulated around the deed of the monarchy, and as if it had a mind of its own, it floated into the milky white light ahead of time. A majestic but stiff voice echoed in the air above the game of life and death. The 100 Races War has finally come to an end. Totemic power continues with this new chapter. Totem of the Kingship. Descend upon the festive fire tribe. The festive fire tribe shall rule the void continent for 100 years. There was no emotion in this voice, as if it were a manifestation of the game of life and death itself. At the same time, all the diagrams on the stone steels outside of the game of life and death vanished, replaced by the contents of the deed of the kingship. Apart from the contents of the contract passed down from ancient times and the patterns unique to the festive fire tribe, there was also Jiang Wang's flamboyant name on it. Zhang Linchuan. For the next 100 years, the festive fire tribe would rule the world. This so-called kingship naturally wasn't decided by a random announcement. It was probably guaranteed by the totem of the kingship. Jiang Wang couldn't hide his curiosity as to how the totem of the kingship ensured the festive fire tribe's position. But none of this had anything to do with him. It was difficult to describe what it felt like to enter the central point of the game of life and death, and it was difficult to describe what was inside. The majestic voice echoed in his ears, and the milky white light filled his vision. No one who had entered a game of life and death could describe what they had seen. It seemed to be a passage between life and death, a type of enlightenment and an illusion. It was as if it didn't exist. By the time Jiang Wang regained his senses, he was already in the boundless sea of stars. He wasn't sure if it was because he wasn't from the void continent that he couldn't see the deepest secrets of the game of life and death. But that wasn't important anymore. He had already obtained a satisfactory harvest, a peerless secret art of the outer pavilion. In other words, the Dubhe world had given him an answer regarding the construction of the Four Saints Tower when he first entered the central point of the game of life and death. It was common knowledge that the outer pavilion required the establishment of the Four Saints Tower outside one's body. The word external, that corresponded to the word internal in the inner mansion, actually referred to the starry dome. Cultivators would erect the 4 great sacred towers in the starry sky to receive the power of the stars. That was the outer tower. These 4 saint towers were usually built in the 4 spirits star zone. The 4 spirits star zone consisted of the azure dragon, white tiger, vermilion bird, and black tortoise. However, the 4 spirits star zone was extremely vast, and there were countless stars. The sacred buildings built by cultivators were insignificant, smaller than a speck of dust. It was the foundation, but it was nothing special. Without special methods, cultivators would not be able to control where their sacred towers would land. They could only try their best to make a choice that was compatible with their own path through constant probing and contact. Many cultivators did not even have a choice. Setting up a sacred tower was already the limit of their life. Taoism took the four words might, sincerity, benevolence, and slaughter as the core of the four spirits. Confucianism took the words faith, virtue, benevolence, and slaughter. Legalism took the words might, ferocity, righteousness, and punishment. On the one hand, it was a choice of value. On the other hand, it was also to construct a uniqueness. This allowed the starlight sacred tower to shine in the boundless starry sky. And now, Jiang Wang had directly established a connection with the Big Dipper through the reward given by the Dubhe world. He obtained the method of using the Big Dipper as a beacon to build the Four Saint Tower. His Four Saint Tower had a specific location, and he could choose any of the Big Dipper's 4 stars. An analogy that wasn't completely correct but could be used to describe the situation was that building an ordinary Four Saints building was equivalent to an ordinary person owning a house in the state of Qi. Building a sacred tower based on the Big Dipper's 7 stars would mean that this person owned a house in Linzi. Qi's house could be anywhere in Qi, but no matter where it was, it would not be as valuable as it was in Linzi. At most, he would be lucky enough to land in Linzi or a place similar to Linzi. The 7-star sacred tower, which was known throughout the boundless starry sky, was definitely one of the most perfect cultivation methods for the outer building realm. The battle in the Dubhe world had connected Jiang Wang's future to the heavens. The experience in several mystic realms, the consolidation of the heaven and earth isolated island, and the sword enhanced by billions of stars from the life and death chess game had allowed him to break through the fog of ignorance. And the seed of divine power had always been waiting for him ahead. Now that he had the path to the heavens in the outer tower, he had a bright future ahead of him. He was not inferior to those people in Tianjiao. Soon, Li Fengyao, Jiang Wuxie, Fang Chong, and the other cultivators who had participated in the Dubhe world appeared in the starry sky one after another. Other than Jiang Wang, Li Fengyao, Jiang Wuxie, and Fang Chong, there were 4 other cultivators left. The death rate in the Dubhe world was not high. Jiang Wang was first, Li Fengyao was second, and Jiang Wuxie was third. In the life and death chess game, Fang Chong tactfully gave up the 3rd position. He was injured and had lost the money to buy his life, so he did not have the confidence to compete with Jiang Wuxie. There was no need to take the risk for the 3rd position. For Jiang Wuxie, the current outcome was not too unacceptable. As long as the final winner was not Lei Zhanqian, everything would be fine. Now, at least Lei Zhanqian had been eliminated, and he still had some gains. Seeing Jiang Wang, Li Fengyao's eyes flashed with a rare smile. "Waiting for me?" "Yes, Sister Fengyao." He called Jiang Wang sister very smoothly, as natural as flowing water. Previously in the life and death chess game, it was all thanks to Li Fengyao's help. Otherwise, Jiang Wuxie and Fang Chong would not have been easy to deal with. Of course, he and Li Fengyao were not afraid of Jiang Wuxie and Fang Chong working together. But if it was just him and Li Fengyao, he really did not have the confidence to defeat Li Fengyao. It could be said that Li Fengyao had deliberately given him first place. Of course, the premise was that he had defeated Lei Zhanqian. In short, when it came to favors, you owed me and I owed you. After so many times, it became a friendship. They started chatting in the starry sky, but the others were not so free. They were willing to wait and listen, including Fang Chong. One by one, they walked through the starry door. Jiang Wuxie was the only one who could be considered pretty. But for some reason, she stuck to Li Fengyao like a plaster. Void Continent World. The life and death chess game had ended, and the totem of royalty descended upon the Qinghua tribe. The Qinghua tribe had been in power for 100 years, becoming the biggest winner of this life and death chess game. However, when Qinghua Yuanchen led the tribe back to the Qinghua tribe in high spirits, he received a piece of bad news that he could not believe. The star beasts in the Wuji catacombs had gone on a rampage, and the tribe leader, Qing Huagaoqi, had been completely annihilated. Because he did not know the situation in the catacombs, Qing Huaheng, who was temporarily in charge of the tribe, did not dare to break through the gates of the catacombs before the life and death chess game ended. After the life and death chess game ended, Yu Tian would also welcome a period of silence. Only then did Qing Huaheng choose to break through the gates of the catacombs. What appeared in front of him was a ground full of corpses. The tribe's #1 expert, Qing Huagaoqi, who was only a step away from becoming a totemic spirit, was left with only a head. It was placed neatly beside the hole that connected to Yu Tian. Yu Tian was as black as ink. Yu Tian was silent. Amidst his grief, there was another question that Qing Huaheng could not figure out. Before the life and death chess game ended, all the warriors guarding the catacombs had died in battle. Why did those star beasts not break through the catacombs and charge up to the Void Continent? You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.